Staying down really long was lane 4, Rowan Biffert. Lane 5 is Kayana Owens. She's looking good. Then way up at lane 8, Natalie Hochever. She's got the lead. And Haas Savar is going to get there first in 26:69.
Well, Jason and I made a few jokes that lane 0 was the fast lane so far here in the preliminaries, but it looks like the top of the pool came to perform today. Lane 8 and lane 9 have had a solid showing. 26:69 there, a good 3/10 off her entry time.
Well, coach can't ask for anything more than that. Wake up early on a Sunday, last day of the meet, and crack 3,500ths or so off your seat time. That's nicely done.
We always talk about breaking new barriers too. Those anything .00, it's always nice to get under. So whether you see an athlete go 25.99 or 26.99, maybe later we'll see some 24.99s. It always feels good as an athlete.
Heat number 5 quickly into the pool. And coming out swimming quickly in lane 9 was Maud Gagne, but she is not following the pattern, not in the lead. It is lane 3 right now, Abigail Williams. And then lane 6, Eloise Allen. And it's Allen who's moving ahead. It's going to be close, but Eloise Allen, I don't know. Actually, it was Abigail Williams in lane 3 who took it.
Yeah, Abigail with a really nice closing speed there. She kept her head down, no breathing into the wall, swam her own race. Again, it's really hard, I guess, to take the 50 free with any sort of strategy because it's really about putting your head down and racing. But some of these athletes know that their final closing speed can make the difference, and especially the timing into the touch, Rob, is so important.
Spoken like a real distance swimmer.
We'll get to that event later. We get a bit of everything this morning. We do get to see the 1,500-meter freestyle later in the program, changing the pace a little bit here from the 50.
Oh, you guys go fast here in the morning heats. We're ready for another one. It's heat number 6 of the women's 50 free. And into the pool they go. It's a splash and dash with 10 lanes. Nobody's really separated themselves yet. Sydney Heisman in lane 1 of Ouellette might be there. Oh, this is going to be tight way up at the top. It is Ella Howe in lane 9. That lane 9 is, they've added a little spice to that lane, I think, this morning.
People often ask me, is there a fast lane? Is there any sort of, draft or movement? And the scientific answer is no. Technically, all the lanes should be fastest. The middle of the pool is where technically the fastest seeds are. So often you'll see the fastest times come out of the middle, and there's usually some momentum with that. But with these morning prelims separated by 1/10 of a second, when you have that good juju, I call it, in a lane, have some fun with it. If you see someone win the heat before you, it can only be good things when it comes to your time to shine.
Byron tells a good story about someone that he knew who once said to him, do the athletes get to pick the lanes that they want? And he said, no. And he goes, and the person said, well, if I had got to pick, I'd pick lane 4 because it looks the fastest.
It looks fast. Well, honestly, we watched in this very pool Emily Overhold win the Pan Am Games out of lane number 9. So it really doesn't matter. If you have a lane, you have a chance.
Who's got it here? Again, lane 9 looking good. Gemma Norman way up at the top. Is she going to get there? Boom, she does. No, she was second, actually. Kelly Choi in lane 6 managed to sneak it out.
Lane 2 there, we get to see Regan Rathwell. She was named to the team in the 200 back shirt. What a great story there. Awesome perseverance after a few injuries. That official announcement will be coming later tonight. Named to her first ever Olympic team.
Yeah, it was one of the highlights of the week, wasn't it, really?
It was. Every time you get the chance to watch someone that wasn't necessarily expecting to be on the team, there's no greater thing to watch as a spectator and a fan of this sport.
And if memory serves, that was 200 back?
Yes.
Yes. And I even thought that Kylie Moss was thrilled for Regan that she
was.
Yeah.
She was so thrilled. It was a really beautiful moment.
Heat number 8.
The last one before we get to our circle seated. And again, we have to chat about it now because we won't get too much time to talk about it later.
Hard to separate this group. Middle of the pool in lane 5, looking good. Amy Pan, and lane 6, Matija Gojevic. And she's taken it, Matija Gojevic, in 25:94. I think that's our quickest time, Brittany, if I remember correctly.
It is, and she's pretty happy about that. I would assume that's going to get some sort of second swim, whether it's a B final or potentially contesting for the A. It is going to really tighten up, though. As I mentioned, there's only about a 1/10 of a second separating the previous heats. Now we get into the circle seed where there's a larger margin of about 7 to 8/10 of a second.
This time we're going to really watch lane 0 because that's where Penny Alexiak is. Emma Okroinen is in this heat in 2. Ainsley McMurray, Delia Lloyd in the middle in lane 4. Sienna Angoves in 5. And here we go in heat number 9 of the 50 free prelims. Penny Alexiak in lane 0, bottom of your screen.
And Delia Lloyd in lane 4, as you mentioned, she represents the High Performance Center Ontario, trains with Marianne Millette out of this very pool, committed actually to swim at Ohio State in the fall.
Alexiak has got the lead, and then up in lane 6, Maya West is challenging. Here they come to the wall. Will Penny get there first? She will in 25:54, fastest time we've seen so far.
So a solid swim for Penny. Of course, we're not used to seeing her in the outside lane. Some of her times have what we call in swimming expired. So after a 2-year increment, some of the times are no longer considered for qualification for meets. Now it still is, you know, she still has a personal best time, and she still has times from her years from 2016 to 2020, but not always do we see her swimming with entry times of those times.
By the way, Taylor Ruck is the Canadian record holder in this race.
She is. She'll be in the next heat in lane 4. She's also the only one that's ever been under the Olympic qualifying time. So that time in this event, 24:70. At the moment, she is a clear favorite. She's 7/10 faster than anybody else in the field. But this is a meet of opportunity. This is a meet of new chances. And we just talked about a really great example of it in the last heat with Regan Rathwell. So if one of these athletes can have the swim of their life. We also see with Taylor, she's only on the relay at the moment, so it would be nice for her to qualify in an individual event.
Women's 50 free prelims, heat number 10, middle of the pool. Roxanne Lemieux in 3, Sarah Fournier in 4, Sylvia Stekavicius in 5, Ella Maria Matsurek is in 6. And in lane 1, swimming well is Liliana Fack. Lane 4 moving up, Sarah Fournier. It's going to be tight. Here they come. And it is Fournier in lane 4 in 25:82. Not as fast of a heat as the last one.
Really strong swim out of lane number 1, Liliana Fack, to finish second. And I spoke about the athlete in in heat number 8, cracking that 26-second. She's looking really well to get into the B final, and that was only 4 people did so out of the circle seated heat.
All right, so now we have the Taylor Ruck heat. She'll be in the middle of the pool in the last heat of the women's 50 free. Has that seed time of 24:05.
Yeah, and right beside her, Brooklyn Douthright, she had an incredible 100 freestyle to put her name on the roster in the 4x100 freestyle relay. Of course, all of those will be official after tonight, so we have to wait and see. But
keep your eyes on 3, 4, and 5. Hannah Cornish is in lane 5.
Daniel Hannes out of lane number 6, also in the final of the 100 freestyle earlier in the program.
Taylor Ruck is starting to really move. Cornish is trying to stay with her. Taylor Ruck looking for a good time, gets the fastest time so far in 25:14.
And that's, again, what we expected out of this morning. We knew Taylor was the clear favorite, and she just proved that 25.14, still about 4/10 off of being able to swim this event individually. So it is going to take another significant drop for Ruck. But I think if anyone's prepared for it, it's her. Of course, she's a 4-time Olympic medalist, one of the veterans on our team, and one of the relay aces.
So Penny Alexiak qualifies second fastest, then Cornish, Angove, all of those into the A final. You got your junior and B finalists as well. So all of these swimmers with the letter beside either will get a second swim or be an alternate for a second swim later today.
Right, when you see the letter R, that means they're a reserve, so some sort of alternate. But it has been great to see, you know, every morning we've tried to celebrate. We talk a lot about the themes being the Olympic team and the Paralympic team, but getting to be at this trials is an accomplishment in itself, and getting a second swim at these trials is a whole other accomplishment as well. So just celebrating all the athletes that are here competing, and of course those that advance on to get a second swim. Even if it is a swim off, it's another opportunity to race, and that's really important.
It was interesting yesterday watching you guys getting ready for a swim off, and then an official came out and said to the two athletes, nope, you don't have to go, because someone else had pulled out, and they were both going to be eligible for that race.
Yeah, that was so fun to watch. He ran to beside his teammates up the other side of the pool and said, I'm out, I'm done, I don't have to do this. And in a 50 free, it's not the biggest deal, but we watched two 200 fly swim-offs earlier in the program, and that, Rob, is a really difficult race to have to do a swim-off in, because not only is it just a grueling event, but to go, you know, toe-to-toe with your competitor, and to know that every single lap is going to make a difference. You got to think strategy, you got to think fatigue, you got to think load management. It was challenging for sure, but we're getting set for the 100-meter butterfly. A couple stars in the pool later on in the circle seated heats. This is arguably one of the events I think Canadians should be most excited about. We have the potential to see two men qualify, Anelia Haroon and Josh Liendo, honestly in striking distance as well. Finley Knox has had the meet of his life.
Has he ever? He just has so much confidence, and you know, Byron talked a little bit about him, you know, not being happy with the way things went for him in Tokyo, and then that's exactly what Finley talked about himself in his interview. He's just saying, yeah, I was 17th and it wasn't good enough for me, and I, you know, sort of reset.
Yeah, I actually had a really good heart-to-heart with him a month ago at the Canadian Open, because I had a bit of a similar experience, not finishing 17th, but when you set expectations for yourself and you come home from an Olympic Games and everybody wants to celebrate you, but to your own expectations, you just really didn't hit the mark. And he's worked a lot in the last couple of years to be proud of his accomplishments, as he should be.
So lane 3 is Alvin Shen Song. He's leading at the halfway point in 57.2. Sorry, I'm looking at the clock one direction. They're done, Brittany. They're done. That's he
well, we were
it.
just talking about the turn and fly.
I know. That's what threw me off.
There you go. That's it. That's all. 2 laps to the pool here in butterfly. And a personal best, or at least faster than his entry time, which is awesome at a lane number 1. And we get set for the heat number 2.
Fastest seed time in this heat is in the middle of the pool in lane 4, Parker Deshays, who we've seen several times this week in finals. There's a 57.47. Again, he is in 4. On either side of him is Zachary McLeod and Simon McClure. And Parker Deshays just absolutely erupts off the blocks. Reacts in time of 0.63, which is one of the quickest, and then absolutely flies into the pool. He's going to touch here at 50 meters. Easily in first at 25.6.
And the thing in butterfly, one thing to remember, of course, as you watch the in and out of the wall, you have to touch simultaneously with both hands at the same time. Of course, at this level, we should see that across the board, but if you're going to see a disqualification butterfly, that's the place that it's most likely to come.
Did you see something, or are you just pointing that
out?
No,
I like to, when we're coming into the wall, make sure the audience is aware, but no, I didn't call a DQ. Everyone seemed to be clean there.
Parker Deshays comes in at 55.56, and then lane number 1 kind of sneaked by, and that was Alexander Miao. So
and a huge drop.
5.6, yeah.
2 seconds faster than his entry time. So really great for the youngster out of Cascade Swim Club.
I feel like he's had a good meet as well.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen that smile more than once throughout the week. Again, this is a long program, 7 full days of racing. A lot of the athletes, whether they qualified in a bunch of events or not, have stayed around to swim the time trials, and some have stuck around for the junior finals, which become pretty late nights. So,
and we're underway in the 3rd heat of the men's 100 butterfly. Lane 1 starting well is Vaillancourt.
yeah, and the other thing about butterfly to keep an eye out for is the athletes staying nice and low to the water. So you want the least amount of resistance, and you like to stay nice and low. The breath position and the head position, you want it to kind of come the least amount high out of the water.
Lucas Amaral had the lead out of lane 2, and he still does. 2 over from the yellow lane markings.
Staying nice and low, you can see. Other thing is to manage their breath accordingly. So this final stretch, you do want to keep your head down. You do not want to take a breath every stroke.
Lane 5 coming on, Alim Kurji. This is going to be close at the wall, and it's lane 1, Henry Vaillancourt, who finished really strong in 29.99, and 56.33 is how he finishes.
Super well split there to be able to come home under 30 seconds with a time of 56.3. This is a stroke that, you know, the butterfly, that first 50 is going to feel quite easy. Hopefully it feels quite easy, but coming home, it starts to really catch up with you. So it is really important to manage your pacing, also manage your legs. The legs just, they can become 2 big heavy weights through the water if you're not managing it properly. So a really, really great closing speed there at lane number 1, Henry Vaillancourt.
Heat number 4, men's 100-meter fly. Brittany, have you heard Byron tell the story about how the butterfly came to be?
I have not.
Back in the 50s, they were doing the breaststroke, and some of the athletes were deciding, hey, it was a lot easier to recover over the water instead of under the water, and thus the butterfly.
Wow. I mean, I understand why it's called the butterfly, because they are kind of moving through the water with the wide arms. They look like they could be a butterfly, although the motion is more like a dolphin. So a little tricky there for sure, but I love a history lesson from the one and only Byron McDonald.
I do too. Keep an eye on Elijah Daly in lane 0 at the bottom. He wasn't in the lead at the turn, but he seems to be now. And he is really coming on in the middle of the pool. They're trying to challenge. Lane 4 is Brady McPherson Lewison. He's just slightly ahead of Busan in lane 5. And the win goes to Leon Kim out of lane 3. Didn't even mention his name, but he has had a good week too.
He has had a great week. There you see the 2nd place finisher out of lane 0, Elijah Daly. And it was Leon Kim, like you mentioned. He got his hand on the wall there first. A very promising young athlete here on the Canadian junior team, only 15 years of age. He'll probably be one of those names we talk about contesting for that junior Pan Pac roster.
Almost a second off of his entry time. 55.39 for Leon Kim. If you're wondering, that Olympic qualifying standard is a tough one. It's 51.67. Here's heat number 5. Lanes 3, 4, and 5 are Boulajul, Goffran, and Bauman.
Off strong there in lane number 4, Hayden Goffran. Reaction time of 0.64, but he made the most of the power off the blocks. I always say with young age groupers, we're kind of trained to think about the start, and then we kind of just fall in the water sometimes. But as you get older, you really see making the most of the power off of that block.
Goffran turns in 25.10. And he has moved himself nicely into the lead by a half a body length here.
You can see he's staying nice and low with the water. Every time he takes a breath, you don't want that chin to get out of the water. You want to stay really just under where that mouth needs to get a bit of air and go right back under.
Watch the clock here for Gouffran. This is a really good swim. 53.69, by far our fastest time.
And we'll make sure to make note of that because the circle seed is about to begin. So we'll have to compare that with the rest of the field, but there is a chance that time qualifies through to that A final or maybe that B final. And speaking of that circle seed, coming up next in lane number 4, Finley Knox, Canadian record last night in the 200 IM. How good did he look, Rob?
Oh, just all week. And then in the swim yesterday morning, it was a little bit of possum. He came home super slow, like over 2 seconds slower than he did in his Canadian record time earlier this year. So you knew he had a lot more in the tank, and then he was faster basically in every stroke.
Talk about load management, right? These athletes have to be smart, swimming in the morning, knowing how to get the job done, but not overexerting themselves.
Finley Knox is in lane number 4, and it looks like he is going to the lead. Beside him is Keir Ogilvie in 5. Ogilvie, and on the other side is Eric Ginsberg. It's Ginsberg actually in the lead at 24.48, 100ths ahead of Finley Knox.
Knox will build into this final 25, but as you mentioned, Ginsberg out really strong there at the 50, trying to put his name in the hat here for the final.
Finley Knox, we know he's got lots of endurance. We've been seeing it all week, and here he comes. He's going to touch first. It's going to be quick. It's going to be 52.62 for Finley Knox. And then we've got a couple of got 3:53 second times as well. Ginsberg, Dongfeng, and Doman.
And you're seeing Dongfeng right there. He was the U Sports champion in 200 fly. Was actually 7th at the turn at the 50, but used that 200 fly speed to his advantage there coming home to get his hand on the wall 3rd. But as you mentioned, Knox wins our first circle seed. Important to note that Hayden Gouffran, out of the non-circle seeded, would have come in 3rd in that heat. So he's definitely still in the mix to qualify in the top 10.
Last year, Ilya Haroun went 51.4 at the Canadian trials to finish 2nd behind Josh Liendo. And he is in the water now in the middle of the pool in lane number 4, Ilya Haroun.
And Ilya won the silver medal at the 2022 Short Course World Championships. In this event, he qualified for the Olympic team 2 nights ago in the 200 butterfly. He was also the NCAA champion this year for the University of Arizona State in the 200 butterfly. Talk about someone that's going to build into a race. He only gets better as the distance goes.
Nevertheless, he does have the lead at 24.52 at 50 meters. Still under the water, Ilya Haroun finally comes up in the lead. Might be a challenge from Ali Sayed in lane 1. But Ilya Haroun has the lead, and nobody's going to touch him. Let's watch the clock. Barely getting to 50, 51.66. And that is 100th off the Olympic qualifying time. Sorry, that's under the Olympic qualifying time.
By 1/100th.
By 100th, yeah.
You had that part right for sure, and he just looked so smooth in the water. I'm confident he can drop a little bit more off of that into the finals. Now, talk about statement swims here. Anytime they hit the Olympic qualifying time in the morning, that bodes very well for the final. Speaking of boding well for the final, Josh Liendo. The fact that we have 2 men that can get under this standard and potentially contest for the podium at the Olympic Games. I remember the last few years where we really just haven't had a 100 butterflyer on the men's side here in Canada, and now we have 2 in the conversation. Josh Liendo having an incredible meet so far.
The Canadian record holder is in lane number 4, Josh Liendo.
He broke the Canadian record in the 50 freestyle last night, was really happy with that time, and he won the 100 freestyle already this week. So he currently on his Olympic program has the 50-meter freestyle, the 100-meter freestyle, and a few relays to contest this summer.
Let's watch this 50-meter split for Josh Liendo. It's going to be 23.68.
And that was with a glide into the wall.
Oh my goodness, and then he comes up and he's a couple of body lengths ahead of everyone else. Josh Liendo is on one this morning.
And he looks so smooth. We're gonna have to keep an eye on that Canadian record time, 50.36.
Here comes Josh Liendo, the clock barely at 47 seconds. Can he get there? 50.33, yes, a new Canadian record in the heats.
Oh boy. A new Canadian record for Josh Liendo in the heats on day number 7 at the Olympic and Paralympic swimming trials. Rob, does that not set us up for quite an exciting final night?
You betcha. Well, Ilya Harun laid down the gauntlet in the last race with his 51.6. And Josh Liendo says, I see your 51.6, and here's a 50.33. Wow.
And like I said with the Summer McIntosh yesterday, she spoke on the final 50 in the 200 fly about how she had a lot that she wanted to work on. And when these athletes that are so world class, that are some of the best in the world, when they know they have something to work on, Rob, that's a really exciting position to be in, because you know you have the ability to still get faster. And something I know Josh is going to look at with his coach was his timing into the wall. I think the speed was there. I think the power is there. But I think some of his details could use some fine-tuning. So I think we might see the first Canadian under 50 seconds tonight.
Wow. You heard it here first. So again, a brilliant time for Josh Liendo. The world record, by the way, in that event is held by Caleb Dressel, who I believe trains with. Yeah, they train together.
Yeah, his teammate at the University of Florida. They've really leaned on each other a lot in the last year. Caleb making his comeback after a bit of time off, focusing on recovery and his mental health. A new father, of course, as well. So they really use each other to propel to the next level in this sport. You can see Liendo there, just a beautiful stroke. He's looking stronger than I think I've ever seen him look. And we laughed with Yuri Kissel after that relay team was named on the 4x100 freestyle when Yuri came second and under that Olympic qualifying time. And I said, Yuri, you know, what was the last year off like? He said, I've just been pumping some iron. I'm getting strong. And I looked over to Josh. I said, I think you're doing the same.
By the way, that was the second fastest time in the world this year at 50.33. All right, here we go for the women's 200-meter medley first heat. We've got 3 athletes. Kira Mullins is in 3, Michelle Zhang is in 4, and Ruby Keller is in lane number 5. And of course, they're starting with 50 meters of butterfly, then switching to 50 meters of backstroke, then the breaststroke, where often the moves are made, and then coming home in 50 meters of freestyle.
Yeah, and the 200 AM is always a fun event to watch, because although it's still 4 laps of the pool, there's only 150 of each stroke, so you have the chance to just attack it if you're willing and if you're a little bit brave. I know it takes a little bit and it's going to hurt coming home, but we watched Finley Knox truly swim this race, and he completely attacks it. We have quite a lot of exciting names in the program on the women's side in this event. You know, we have to talk McIntosh. Summer will be coming up in heat number 8, but we have some others that are in the top in the world in this race, and we can only send 2. So it's going to be one of the events tonight you have to keep a close eye on. We have Mary Sophie Harvey, who talk about a great meet so far. She's qualified in the 100 butterfly. She's also qualified in the 200 freestyle and on a couple relay teams, including the 4x100 freestyle as well. But Sydney Pickram, this is what arguably is known as her best event. And so the 2 of them have gone back and forth within that 2:08, 2:09 range. The Olympic qualifying time in this event, 2:11:47. I'm confident we can see up to maybe even 4 athletes under that time. So we've kind of chatted throughout the week about the events that are a little unrealistic that we get multiple athletes under, and then some of the events that are very realistic. And this is an event I would consider very realistic.
Well, just to add to your point about how good Sydney Pickram is, silver medal at the World Championships a few months ago in Doha. I know not everyone was there, but still, she performed on the day.
And she has world medals back from 2019 in this event, and the 400 IM and the 200 breaststroke. So she's also aiming for, or about to be named to her 3rd Olympic team. So talk about experience and someone that's gone through quite a bit in the sport. Sydney Pickram is definitely a name that comes out, and she's looking really strong in the water this week, has a new appreciation for the sport. is definitely enjoying herself in the process.
Here come the athletes to the wall to finish off our first of 8 heats in the women's 200-meter individual medley. Michelle Zhang finishes at 2:25.22.
Nice heat win there for her, just above her entry time. Only 13 years old, so bright futures ahead. It's some of my favorite parts about these trials is watching the youngsters get their first Olympic trials experience, knowing that this is just the beginning for them.
Middle of the pool here for heat number 2 will be Milena Kosic, who we just saw race in the 50 free. She's nicely warmed up. Now Riley Greenfield's in 4, Chanel Baudouin is in 5, Daniela Gonzalez in 6, Peyton Lee is in lane 7. Quickly going to the front is Milena Kosic. Yeah, she's all warmed up, Brittany.
We joked yesterday there was a double of a 200 butterfly and 800 free. It was our heat winner, Marina Gonzalez Garbinas, but she has won almost every heat she's done this week. And I said, there's no better way to warm up for an 800 free than a 200-meter butterfly, but it looks like some people use the 50 freestyle this morning to warm up.
I like that. I think that's a nice, easy, you're building into it.
Wake your body up a little, get a bit of lactic acid flow in. Also, with it being day 7, some people truly just need to, you know, put in that exertion of effort. That's something the swimmers do in warm-up. You want to get in a little bit of race pace to make sure you don't want to give 100%, but a solid 95 is really smart. So you know that your body's used to hitting the kind of effort level that you want to hit in your race.
Kosic leading through the backstroke. They'll switch to the breaststroke. She's at 105.2, ahead of Peyton Lee, whose name I've mentioned many times this week as well. Seems like she's had a pretty good meet.
And the breaststroke, you teased it on the first 50, Rob, but the breaststroke within the IM is always fun to watch because we have certain IMers that are breaststroke specialists. We have others that, like myself, really struggled in the breaststroke, and as it started to catch up with me later in my career, I never really swam this event at a high level beyond 15 years old, but this is the fun lead change portion of the race.
Well, Oliver Dawson just needed an extra few meters yesterday to make some noise in his IM.
Well, and Finley Knox, a great example of someone that has worked in the breaststroke lately, right? He now won the 100 breaststroke individually, and it used to just be a nice to have for his IM, and now he's truly our best Canadian breaststroker in the 100.
Milena Kosic in lane 3 is still leading this heat. The second of 8 heats in the women's 200 IM. And way up in lane 7 is Peyton Lee. She's going to be close, but it's going to be Kosic in 2:21.9 and 3.
So we're gearing up for 8 heats in this event. The last 3 will be our circle seed, where we see the athletes I spoke about earlier, Mary Sophie Harvey, Sydney Pickram, and of course the one and only Summer McIntosh. I'm sure this crowd is going to get loud here this morning. Gearing up for heat 3.
I felt bad when I was calling Summer's race last night because we were looking at the clock for the
Canadian record.
And I knew I had it written somewhere down what the #1 time in the world is, but it was like just off it, and then I realized a few seconds later, but it's the #1 time in the world this year.
Well, and her standards are, you know, we just have to sometimes humble ourselves and reflect on perspective, truly, because in the 400 freestyle, when she was disappointed after night 1, it still was the fastest time in the world this year. And McIntosh is an athlete that is preparing right now to peak in Paris, and so did not fully taper for this event.
Right.
And so as the meet goes on, she is getting more rest, her body's recovering better, and therefore she'll have a little bit of extra zip. That's why when we watched her in the 400 IM, you know, now that she had the day off beforehand, she was able to get some rest. And I was speaking yesterday to Jason about that, and really the best training you could possibly do is race experience. So even though she's missing, you know, this week of training, she's getting really valuable work experience. Also, it's preparing herself for the program she's going to try to accomplish across the 8 days of competition in Paris.
Well into the backstroke portion here, Angela Jiachen Huang in lane 1 was looking good, but it looks like it's lane 5 and Sophie Kissuk who's really taken over here in the backstroke portion. She's going to touch first halfway through this 200 medley in 105.2. I like the point that you made the other day to Jason about how Summer drops into all of these meets. She'll do the 100 back at this meet and then do the 100 breast at this meet, and all of those things just help.
Right, and you know, sometimes you would go to a program when you're that good at so many different things. You do have to make decisions with your coaches about what events to swim, but it really is a different mental game when you're racing an event that you hold the world record in or the Canadian record in or the world top class time in. Sometimes when you're only a 17-year-old, you need to practice what it's like to just be a kid again and to race different things, but it's all helping her towards the 400 AM, because the 400 AM really is just 4 combinations of the stroke 100s, although I hope you do them at a bit of a different speed and pace. In theory, having to practice them all is really beneficial for Summer.
Lane 3, Maria Kosset in the lead and moving ahead. So a really good swim by Maria Kosset, and 2:22.67 is the end result. It was the athlete in lane 0, Willow Colburn, who sneaked in for 2nd place.
And Willow dropping a 2nd off her entry time. Maria also under her entry time, both of them 16 years of age. Really strong performance this year. A couple smiles as the athletes touch the wall. That's all we can ask for.
We've seen a lot of those yellow and red swim caps this week from Calgary. The team with more athletes in this meet than anywhere else. A couple in this race as well, including Rachel Wigginton and Sydney Stewart, who are in lanes 2 and 3. Fourth heat of the 200-meter individual medley, starting with 50 of butterfly.
Yeah, and Rachel in lane number 2, the sister of Lauren Wigginton, who is qualified provisionally to the 4x200 freestyle relay on the men's side. Another one we'll have to decide on, or make official, I guess, later this evening, which is another plug to make sure you're all tuning into finals tonight. They begin at 6 p.m. Show starts at 5:45. And the team will be announced a little bit after the 8 p.m. hour. But talk about swim families. This is another great example.
I hope you're sending people to your and Devin's show that starts at 5 o'clock as well.
Well, Rob, that's what you're here to do as well. Thank you for that. We are on YouTube Live every day. If you're interested in tuning in, we try to give you a little bit of a preview. And then, of course, the breakdown comes at 5:45. Usually there's an honor on the pool deck. We get the anthems, and all of a sudden the racing starts.
Paige Corbally in lane 6 has the lead, but quickly coming up beside her is Olivia Brenzen. And then don't forget about the athlete in lane 2, Rachel Wigginton. As we mentioned, she's got the lead.
And she was one of the fastest backstrokers there. We talk about this being the chance to see who's really going to win this race is the breaststroke. We watch often athletes make their move. Also, some athletes begin to drop back if they go really hard in the first 100. We saw that kind of out of Blake Tierney yesterday, the backstroke specialist that entered in the final to the 200 IM. He was almost up with Finley at the 100, of course, knowing his flying back are strong, and then started to drop back a little bit. But what a meet for him as well.
Oh my goodness, it's been just amazing to watch what he's done. I had a chance to meet his parents yesterday. They're super nice. And they're now all of a sudden got to book those tickets for Paris. It's, you know, you didn't dare before. You wanted to, but you didn't dare.
Yes, I always say, I was talking to the Moss family last night just about that, if they had anything booked. And it is a very, very tight rope that a lot of athletes hold on their parents. I know I was one that said, you cannot jinx me, Mom and Dad. I appreciate you so much, but nothing is booked until I have my ticket.
And if you do, don't tell me. Rachel Wigginton's got the lead here with 3 meters to go. She's going to touch in 2:22.28.
And she's had a really strong meet. Only 17 years old, as you mentioned, with that yellow cap. University of Calgary Swim Club. Kisu also having a really strong meet. club team. Lane 9 came second there. And we're gearing up for our final heat before the circle seated begins. A few of our junior national team members, Katie Forrester, Cameron Stannard, in this heat. Or I guess graduates of our junior national team program. They're now 20 and 19 years of age, but names that have represented Canada previously. We talk a lot about qualifying here for the Olympic and Paralympic teams, but these athletes are also trying to qualify for the Junior Pan-Pacific Championships in Australia, and that competition truly is one that helps us gear up towards your senior national team.
And isn't there also a Pan-Pacs coming up in LA in a few years? I believe
Yes.
there is, yeah.
It's in preparation for the Olympic Games to be held there in 2028.
Kind of like a test meet. Yeah,
Exactly.
good. All right. Just
Got an empty lane 4.
We do have an empty lane 4. That was supposed to be Katie Forrester's lane.
Late scratch, it happens sometimes, so she's chosen not to swim this event. Keep an eye on lane 5 instead, Cameron Stannard.
Keep an eye on lane 1. Leila Higo has the lead. And then way up in lane 6, we've got Zian Liu challenging. And then way up in lane 8, we've got Tara Vroom, who's got the lead at 104.76 halfway through as they head into the breaststroke.
Yeah, a beautiful breaststroke here out of lane number 3. Annie Nicholson-Jodan out of Point Claire Swim Club. She'll look to make a bit of a move. Also looking strong out in lane number 1. We've been typically seeing the bottom of the pool, but the rest of the field is starting to catch up here. Pretty even across all the way, lane 0 through 9, Rob.
Yes, it is really spread out in this one. Getting ready to touch. With less than 50 meters to go, it is now Marissa Lauren in lane 7 who's grabbed the lead.
And this is fun when you get to watch the swimmers push each other. In the prelims, this heat is tightening up, which means it's anybody's race.
It looks like lane 1, Leila Higo, has in fact gone back to the lead. Can she hold on? And then way up at the top, Tara Vroom challenging out of lane 8. It's going to be close between the two of them. Here they come to the wall. And it is lane 1, Leila Higo, who takes it in 2:20.85. Just ahead of Emma Nicholson-Jodan.
Emma Sundermeyer was second there, also unattached, 2:21.08 her time, and then Tara Vroom in third. Again, we'll keep an eye on those times when it comes to qualifying for the finals, whether that's B finals or junior finals, but talk about a stacked field here. We're gearing up for our first circle seated heat. Right there you see Mary Sophie Harvey entered in a 2:09.65, 2 full seconds under that Olympic qualifying time, but she's only entered in third. We're also going to see Julie Brosseau. She has lane 5, qualified for the 4x200 freestyle relay after narrowly missing the individual 400 free. Keep an eye as well on lane number 6, Brooklyn Douthright, who we spoke about in that 50 free, but she is another athlete already named to the team in the relay. And can't forget Emma Cronin out in lane number 8. She will be swimming the 4x200 freestyle relay. So 4 athletes in this heat already named to our Olympic team.
As mentioned, it is a stacked field. Mary Sophie Harvey does the butterfly in 28.55. Danielle Hanos challenging on her right in lane 3.
And Hannah's a backstroke and butterfly specialist, so not too rare to see her in the mix here, but she's having a really great meet. An athlete that is often just on the outside of our national team. She's competed at the Pan Am Games and done really well for Team Canada there, yet to make an Olympic team, so she's trying to keep herself in this competition.
Close between those two, Harvey and Brosseau. Harvey has it at 103.3 halfway through this race. Into the breaststroke they go.
And this is where Harvey will try to make her move. Also with a strong breaststroke, Julie Brousseau, who we know has a strong freestyle, of course, so if she's even a little bit in the mix. We do have to keep in mind, though, these athletes are qualifying through to the final. We don't expect to see a final push, but Mary Sophie Harvey is going to want to get one of those center lanes.
Mary Sophie Harvey is definitely in control of this race now. She's going to touch 150 meters, head into the freestyle at 140.7. And that is a nice lead by almost 3 seconds.
And we can expect maybe a 31-32 for her on this 50, getting her to about the 212, 213. Again, a comfortable swim, but we don't want her emptying the tank this morning because it's going to be a really close race in through the final.
The feet are churning, and here she comes, Mary Sophie Harvey in 2:11.32. That again is under the Olympic qualifying time. Second place, the athlete in lane 3, Danielle Janos, who hung in there nicely.
And Mary just wanted to say, Brittany, you are wrong. In fact, I want to push the pace a little bit. I'm going to finish in a 30.5. So she didn't necessarily need that final push, but she did it anyway. A lot of these athletes, like I said about the practice before you race, it is good to get into that race mindset. It is good to push the pace a little bit. I mean, we just saw a Canadian record of Josh Sando in the prelims. So every athlete has something different they prefer. There you're seeing Sydney Pickram. She'll be in lane 4 for this heat. Also way under that Olympic qualifying time with her best 2:08.56. Mentioned Rob, she's been on the podium in the 2024 Worlds in this very event.
And we are underway in the 7th of 8 heats in this women's 200-meter individual medley. Chapluha in 3, Pickram in 4, Ella Jansen in 5, Alexandre Lepage in 6. And Sydney Pickram is battling Jansen right now.
And Jansen is an athlete that has been so close across many events. Her versatility shines, but unfortunately, she's been just shy in a few races. She just missed the 400 IM qualifying standard. She did finish second, though, and has been under that time, so that's something that the selection committee is going to have to make a decision on. She's in lane 5 right now, swimming well. Also, as mentioned, you said Tessa Chapluha. She is an Olympian, competed in Tokyo 2020 in the 400 IM.
Won a world short course gold medal.
She did, and a Pan Am Games long course. Definitely knows what it's like to stand on the podium.
Sydney Pickram will be switching to breaststroke. She's a really good breaststroker. She won the 200 breaststroke by 100th of a second over Kelsey Waugh the other night, but hanging with her nicely. Sorry, Pickram is leading Jansen. Pickram's in 4.
Talk about strong breaststrokers. We have a few other finalists in the 200 breaststroke. Alexandre Lepage is in lane number 6, also challenging in lane 3 right now. Tessa Chapluha, she was in the individual 200 breaststroke final as well.
This is a really good heat right now. We're gonna have several finalists probably come out of this heat. Sydney Pickram's going to touch now with 50 meters to go in 140.5, virtually the same as Mary Sophie Harvey had, if my memory serves.
Yep, exactly that. Mary Sophie known a bit more for her freestyle as one of her strengths, so expect Pickram be just a little bit lighter, and as you can see, Pickram barely kicking now, so talk about different strategies. It looks like Pickram shutting it down. She wants to win her heat, but she's not pushing any sort of pace at the moment.
Here comes Ella Jansen challenging on her right shoulder. Now Sydney looks over there. She does not want to lose this heat or come in second, so she wins it in 2:13.70. That's a good time.
Okay, so at least I kind of still know what I'm talking about there. It was a great example of an athlete that chose to shut it down. 33.19. When Pickram's at her best, she would be a 30 point on that final 50. So we can expect at least 3 to 4 seconds faster for Pickram tonight. And that race again, Rob, is going to be exciting. We're not done yet, though. Summer McIntosh in lane number 4. She'll be challenged by Bailey Anderson, a 2020 Olympian in this event, in lane 3. And Ashley McMillan is over in lane number 5. She swims out of this pool for HBC Ontario. Swims at University of Southern California. Her dad played varsity hockey there.
Nice. And we're underway in the last of our heats in the women's 200-meter individual medley. Summer McIntosh in that yellow Sarasota Sharks cap in the middle of the pool. She's won the 200 meters in the fastest butterfly of the year this year. Fastest time of the year, so we know she's good at the butterfly.
And we already know, Rob, that she doesn't really have a weakness. She's one of the top in the world at the 200 backstroke. Her breaststroke has really come on. If you had to name a weakness, it would probably be in the breaststroke. The 200 IM is more of a new event for her, although only 7/10 off that world record. Rob, we've talked about her having the world record in the 400 IM. Someone earlier this morning kind of nudged me to say, do we think Summer's going to break the world record in the 200 IM? And to be honest, it wasn't really on my radar until I looked and saw that she's only a few tenths of a second off of it. And we know McIntosh has proved that there are no boundaries, there are no ceilings for her.
Katinka Hasu is the one who holds that world record, and you're right, it's within striking distance. 1:00.91 for McIntosh heading into the breaststroke. An event, a discipline, or at least a stroke that she's worked really hard on.
Yeah, her technique is really strong. She moves well through the water. She's pulling a good amount. She's not taking up too wide of a pull. You don't want to kind of do this massive sweep because you're taking up more energy and not moving through the water. You want to always be in a forward motion and never really a sideways motion. There you see McIntosh looking really good here in the morning. Again, someone that doesn't really need to push the pace. We've seen her across the preliminaries take control of each heat, but not really emptying any tank.
1:39.99 for Summer McIntosh. Second place right now is Ashley McMillan, who's in lane 5. Third is Bailey Anderson, the Olympian. And now McIntosh just kind of cruising in this last 50, and coming up on her right shoulder is Ashley McMillan a little bit. Not anymore.
Yeah, McIntosh nice and relaxed here this morning. Going for a little swim. It's casual. She's going to touch the wall and be our top seed.
Nope, she's not.
Oh,
she's going to be second best.
Just off.
Behind Mary Sophie Harvey.
And this is why they leave you to make the call, Rob.
Maybe she is. Somewhere 2:11.61. Yeah, 2:11.32 is the time that...
Mary Sophie.
Yeah.
She's going to have lane 5 tonight. Exactly where she wants to be in those yellow lanes.
In the words of Finley Knox, now she will do the hunting to Mary Sophie Harvey because she's in lane 4.
This is quite a stacked field here. Julie Brosseau with an outside lane. She is a relay swimmer, as mentioned, on the Olympic roster. But then there's a ton of other athletes that are chasing, trying to get their final spot. Again, Mary Sophie Harvey, although on the team, she wants to be able to swim this event at the Olympics. Sydney Pickram, same thing. Right now, she's got the 200 breast. She wants to swim this event at the Olympics. Summer McIntosh, of course, the favorite going in with the Canadian record of 2:06.89. And all of them are going to be challenging, seeing what they're able to get to. It's going to be an exciting final.
Nothing like when the in-house announcer says maybe a world record tonight. You never...
I mean, again, we can never rule it out. Summer knows. Last time she was aware of our little pool plunge, and I like to think that was a little bit of motivation to make sure we went for a swim. Tonight, she hears that announcer and says, okay, if you guys are really looking for it. I mean, what a way to close out these trials if she is able.
All right,
anywhere close to that Canadian record would be great.
Here we go with the women's 200-meter freestyle para. In lane 1, we have Ella Tucker, the S5 category. Hannah Willett is also an S5 in 2. Then Allison Gobiel, also an S5 in 3. In fact, we have 5 S5s in this race. Angela Marina's in 4. Emma Van Dijk's in 5. Jessica Tinney's in lane 6. And Clemence Pere is in lane number 7. And we are underway. 4 lengths of the pool in this women's 200-meter freestyle.
Yeah, and I'll take the opportunity to give a bit of an update on this Paralympic roster as it stands. Nobody in this field of heat number 1, and which is the only heat in the women's 200 freestyle, is already named to that standby team. So talk about really good last chances, really good examples of opportunity. This is a really great chance, as we can send up to 22 on our Paralympic team, 15 of them women, 7 of them men. I'll give a quick run through. We currently have 11 under that A qualifying time. Katie Cosgriff, Danielle Doris, Sabrina Duchesne, Shelby Newkirk, Aurelie Rivard, Tess Routliffe, Katerina Roxon, and then that's 7 on the women's. And then on the men's side, we have Nicholas Bennett, Alec Elliott, Sebastian Masabi, who we'll see in the next heat, and Reed Maxwell. Bit of a tongue twister for me there.
Best hair at the games, at the meet.
Yes, I almost wanted to, when he was doing his interview yesterday, give him a little hairbrush to move it away from his face. But this event is eligible for anyone S2 through S5 and then S14. So sometimes you wonder why you're only seeing specific classifications in each race. Every event is deemed only available for specific classification. So in this one, that is who is able to swim it. And we see making the most of it right now, Angela Marina. She is a center lane. She is in the S14 category, an athlete that was on the Paralympic roster for Tokyo. Also an athlete that holds the Canadian record in this event. Her time stands 2:15.16, set back in 2019.
So she is racing. Emma Van Dyke and Marina are racing beside each other. Marina in 4, Van Dyke in 5. They need a time of 2:10.67 to qualify.
And I think for this this final session, we'll also chat a little bit about those B standards, because we still have so much available space in the roster. As I mentioned, they can take up to 22. So then they go from priority A, which is getting under the A standard, to priority B, which is getting to the B standard. So for her event, the B standard, 2:15.56. So this morning she'll get kind of close to that.
2:16.75, so almost at the B standard. Good point, Brittany. That's why I need you this morning. Byron McDonald just walked by and said hello, but I'm glad you're here with me.
Thank you. I'm appreciating every moment getting spent on the mic with you. Had some exceptional calls throughout the week. You see our heat winner there, Angela Marina. Again, she's only within about 7/10 of her entry time, so a solid morning swim for her, and within striking distance of both the B standard and her Canadian record mark. Speaking of standards, talk a little bit about the S5 category, as the other 5 athletes in this heat still swimming are in the S5. That time on the A standard is a 3:07.35. The B standard, 3:11. So it's something to keep in mind for sure. The Canadian record is 3:21.18, so it would take quite a big Canadian record swim. That's time back from 2000. Marie Danheiser, London Aquatic Club, swam that at the Sydney Paralympic Games.
I know it. I remember it well.
Coming into the wall here.
Here comes the first of our S5s. Allison Gobeil, 3:31.59.
She's entered with a 3:26, so just a few seconds over that. And again, for those curious about classifications, when you see S, that is done for freestyle and backstroke. The SB, and butterfly. The SB is breaststroke. So every classification is different depending on the stroke you do. SB is breaststroke. SM is the medley. So all the athletes are classified an S category, an SB category, and an SM category. And depending on any restrictions of mobility, they might be in a different category with each of those.
And what they do, Brittany, that maybe people don't realize, it's not so much that somebody sits in a little room and looks at people. That's what they used to do. Now they do the testing in the water to see how it functionally affects. Maybe they do some of the testing as well in a clinic or whatever, but so that has to be done before, as I understand, before the Paralympics happen. You can't be getting to the Paralympics and having all these athletes getting classified. That's what used to happen, and it was quite an arduous procedure. Now they want that all done ahead of time.
Right, and the last classification was done about a month ago in Indianapolis. And Rob, I know you don't talk about it too much, but we do have a Paralympian on our booth here this morning, Rob Snook, having competed himself. And I wanted to know, being in that environment,
I should say not as a swimmer, though. I was a track and field athlete.
Yes, sorry, athletics, of course. But I've heard it is quite an invasive process. Can you give people a little bit of insight into how it impacts the emotional stress put on you as an athlete?
I think it's different for people. Like for instance, I have an artificial leg, so as an amputee, it's a little bit different. As we get ready for this heat, we'll just quickly name the athletes Nicholas Bennett is in 4. He set a world record earlier this week, and Sebastian Masabi
Also set a world record
this week.
Talk about a heat.
So for me, it's a little bit more straightforward because it's like, well, here, your leg ends here.
Right.
So, you know what I think? When you said invasive, I thought of drug testing. Drug testing I always found really invasive.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize that someone is literally coming into the stall with you, and they're like 4 inches away from where the thing is happening.
Well, and it is a very vulnerable state you're in. I remember my drug testing after winning a medal in Rio, and I had pneumonia at the time. I was incredibly sick. I could barely stand. And of course, out of the relay team, I was the one that got selected randomly. And in that moment, I don't think I've ever felt more like, I don't know how to describe it, just weak in general, but also you're in this state where all you want is the comfort of something, and then you're in this room with strangers where you have to be kind of in a, yeah, it's not pleasant, and that's what I've kind of heard about the classification process. So I did want to ask you, I am glad that you didn't find that it was incredible, you know, a weight that you had to carry, but I know the reclassification, so say for a while you were in a certain category and then you had to reclassify, and you're expecting to be on the standard set for an S4, and then you all of a sudden are categorized S5. That really does play some mind games with an athlete.
So, and what we've had here actually this week is some athletes who are, say, an S7, and there is no S7 in that race at the Paralympic Games. So if they want to get there in that race, they have to try to meet the S8 category. Well, that is a huge ask.
Yeah.
Once in a while, somebody can do it because they're just, you know, incredibly talented, and they can find a way to get there. But that's, so then you might actually have at the Paralympics someone who maybe comes in 7th, who actually just had a lifetime amazing swim. Nicholas Bennett in 1:55.50.
Speaking of incredibly talented, this one is a name we're going to be hearing about quite a lot at the Paralympic Games. Now, I was actually looking up the world record standard earlier because I have heard rumors that this is also a world record he's striking towards. That time, 1:52.40. Now, that record is tied between 2 Brits, William Allard and Rhys Dunn. Both done relatively recently, which made me think, you know, he's going to have a bit of competition in Paris when it comes to this 200 freestyle.
He hopes the 2 Brits beat each other up or something, you know, tire each other out at one of their meets.
Still important to note, he is under that Paralympic qualifying A standard already in the preliminaries, so shouldn't be too much of a challenge for Nicholas Bennett to get to swim this event at the Paralympics. It's already kind of official. Keep an eye, though, on Masabi. This is one of his strongest events. He holds a Canadian record in a 3:13.87.
The A standard is 3:05.45. Just outside of that.
But a huge Canadian record.
Yes. And he'll have finals, and he has proven that he can swim faster at night than he can in the morning, even when he swims fast in the morning. And his mom has become one of the most famous people around, I think.
Yeah, he just took 6 seconds off his previous Canadian record of 3:13.87. Comes into the wall with a 3:07.80. He's also had a really strong week. Talk about someone who's just completely surged onto the scene out of nowhere. A few months ago, I was speaking to Mike Thompson from the Paralympic Leadership Program, and he was saying, you know, this was an athlete they were all just learning about, and he just got classified within the last couple months. So the fact that he's already breaking world records is awesome. Still relatively young, 19 years of age. PSW, yeah, that's going to be a really, both of them potentially to push to new records tonight. So we have quite the field in that 200 freestyle. Talking about pushing the pace, we're getting to the 1500.
The Brittany McLean distance here. Did you like the 8 better or the 15? Or
So
which one did you dislike less?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. So it's hard, Rob. That technically, I still own the Canadian record in the 1500 free, and the interesting part about that is it wasn't a part of the Olympic program when I was still competing, and because of that, it wasn't really offered at a ton of different competitions. I really only swam the 1500 long course maybe a handful of times in my career, and so I sometimes oddly look back at that race thinking a little bit of like what could have been, what would have been if that was an event that I could really specialize in. It just wasn't really a focus for me. The 800 I loved. It was a bit of the 4 and the 8 were kind of my bread and butter. I felt like the 4 I could really push the pace through all 8 laps of the race. The 800 I love to make like a late charge. 1500 really is just about staying the course, getting into your rhythm, pacing it well, and hopefully we'll get to watch a bit of that excitement here in the heats. We got 4 of them to watch.
Let's give everyone their 5 seconds of fame here. In lane 0, it's Paul McKenzie. In lane 1, it's Mr. Anderson. It's Gonzalez Barbosa. In lane 2, William Dubrow is in 3. Nathan Versluis in 4. Xavier Pimentel is in 5. Hugo Janvier is in 6. Owen Nicholson, Drew Edwards, and Jay Peltier from Camo round out the field. Fastest qualifier in this race, lane 4's Nathan Versluis, 15:59 and 4. But it is way up in lane 6, Hugo Janvier, who's leading.
I just started to mention this is a timed final event, so there are no qualifications through to the next level. Every time is ranked after tonight's 2 heats, so tonight will be the top 10 open times with their entry times, and then we will have a junior final as well. The top 10 within the junior category that aren't already in that A final will swim later in the program, so there will be 20 athletes to add to the final rankings later tonight, but this morning we'll get to see who is ranked, and usually we watch a couple of the athletes from the heat, or the morning, because they're not heats, but from the time finals in the morning, push the pace a little for the final. It's not uncommon to see 1 or 2 of them sneak up to that top 8, top 10.
Although we don't have any Canadians who are in the medal hunt, it would seem, at the Olympic Games in this event this year. By Brittany, we have 4 Olympic medals Canada does in the past in this. You probably know about the Ryan Cochran medals, the silver in London, the bronze in Beijing. I don't think you remember the other 2 though, because George Hodgson took a gold in 1912.
I don't think I missed. I think I missed that one.
I wasn't even around yet.
Well, I hope not. I don't think anybody listening was around. No. I don't think mathematically anybody's 112 years old. And
George Verneau took a silver medal in this event in 1920. So we went from 1920 to 2008 before Canada won another medal in the 1500.
Well, I love a chance to talk a bit about Ryan Cochran too. What a leader for this program. Before we had the Kylie Moss and Summer McIntosh and Maggie McNeil and Josh Liendos, we had Ryan Cochran, and he was truly one of the best to swim in Canada. He was also one of the most consistent athletes across the board. Every single time we went to an international competition, whether it was Worlds, whether it was Pan Pacs, whether it was the Pan Am Games. I remember him competing here in the 2015 Pan Ams, and of course the Olympics. He truly was always expected to podium, and 99% of the time he was able to accomplish that. So again, sometimes when we're talking so highly about the athletes that are currently, it is important to talk about how they got to where they are, and of course the people that came before them.
And at the international level, what I love about this event is that it's not just been one person, like on the women's side, who's been dominating. Bobby Fink won this gold from the U.S. in Tokyo. Then at the 22 Worlds, it was Italian Gregorio Paltrinieri. Then at the 23 Worlds, it was Tunisia's Ahmed Hafnoui, who we loved watching winning the 400 in Tokyo. And then this year's Worlds, not everybody was there, but it was Daniel Wiffen who came through. And so to me, that's fun when you've got, when they stand up in Paris. It could be any one of those. It could be 3 or 4 others who could be the gold medalist. And that's exciting when you have a long race like this, because there's going to be a little bit of a chess match going on.
It is, as a spectator, one of the most enjoyment-filled, I don't know what word I was using to describe there. Words are tough. I joked yesterday. Enjoyable. There you go. This is why we do 2 of us in the booth and not 1. But sometimes, you know, there's so many adjectives I like to describe swimming with, and I lose myself a little, especially in the 1500. But it really is, as a spectator, so enjoyable to tune in, because kind of like that IM where the breaststroke, anything can happen. The pace changes, the leaders move, someone maybe has a late push that we weren't expecting. An athlete at a lane 0 can just as well qualify or medal. And we've seen, you know, Tunisia's Hafnoui win a medal at the Olympic Games out of lane 0, or no, I guess it's an 8-lane final, so out of lane 8 it was. So it's definitely possible, and some of the most exciting races in swimming have come in the distance on the final 100. It was always one of my favorite races to watch because it does happen at the end of the program. So it is one of those kind of like final ribbon events where you know it's coming at the end. Now, as an athlete, it's one of the least enjoyable races to swim.
I can imagine.
We have quite a lot of back and forth battles on the air of what the hardest races are to do. 400 IM takes the cake for a lot of people. The 200 butterfly is some people's vote. A lot of people also throw in the 200 backstroke, but definitely when we get to those distance freestyle races, the one thing about freestyle is when you start to fade, you can somewhat hold it together. If a butterfly you start to fade, there's not much you can do to keep yourself in the mix.
Well, we've got a pretty good battle going on here, actually, between lanes 3 and 6, and that would be William Debreu in 3 and Hugo Janvier in 6 on the top side of the yellow lanes. Those yellow lanes are just a saver. I have to say, just to show how much I need the veterans like you and Byron, I thought I was being a really smart guy. At midnight last night, I went to my computer, and I'm going to print up these start lists ahead of time, and then I'm going to be so ready in the morning. So I made all these notes on my start list, and then we started the first race this morning, and everything was all whacked.
The hardest part, and I mean, you did all the work. That's brutal, and I am sorry to hear that, Rob. But the hardest part is if one athlete scratches, everyone rejigs, right? So say the 6th top seed is no longer in the mix, then the 6 goes to 7, and the 7 goes to 8. Everything moves by 1. So, anyways, it is really difficult. Sometimes you can do yourself a favor, and other times you're really just unfortunately put. And I've learned that the hard way too. I come in the morning just a little bit earlier to get the heat sheet because I tried doing my night before prep, and it wasn't the same when I didn't know who was swimming it yet. So big kudos to you. The work was there. The intent was there.
I wanted to be really smart for you to, you know, my first chance to work with you this week. So, and then it all went to heck. But it's all good. You carried me. You got me through it. The next touch here, they'll be halfway through this first 1,500 meter race. There will be, should be 4, right?
4 heats, yep.
Because there's 2 more that will happen tonight. So they're
correct. We have 6 time finals.
Debreu touches at 7:50 and 7:57. Second was Janvier, also at 7:57. So basically those 2 are dead even.
Right, and that is a good indicator of where they might be coming home in the final time. So right now pacing to be just under their entry times. Being in that 7:57, that's pacing just under 16 minutes. So we only have 1 entrant under that 16-minute mark, Nathan Verslis, excuse me. Verslis, there you go. My apologies. He will be in lane number 4, is in lane number 4. Sitting back right now, but still within striking distance. And this is one of my favorite conversations to have in the distance races because we see many different approaches to the race. Some like to descend by 500. So there's 3 500s. You can break it into the 500s. Every time you flip at a 5, you kind of push the pace a little bit more. Right. You build into it a little. Other people really like just constantly, you know, you want to be splitting, let's call it 32-2. Right. So the whole time you're just trying to consistently hold the same pace. Others love what's called a negative split, which means they close the race faster than they started the race. But there are a lot of indicators of a moment where we can eye out maybe a little bit of an extra push, and one of them being the 1,000 mark. So they're 100 away from that 1,000 meter mark where they only have 500 to go. And often in the 8 and the 15, with that 200 to go, you'll really see the legs hopefully come back in the mix. That's when you have to remind your body to pick it up a little. If you wait too late, like on the final 50, unfortunately sometimes you've left a bit too much in the tank. And this race currently stands mostly in the arms. You know, you want to keep your legs involved, but the rhythm and holding the rhythm in your stroke is due to the arm tempo. So keeping the legs involved, which both of our leaders right now are doing a great job of keeping the legs involved, and it's still shaping up a close race. Lane number 6, Hugo Janvier, and lane number 3, we have William Debreu.
Yeah, those two are definitely setting the pace. Let's see where Nathan Versluis is. He's in third place. He's about 4 seconds back. He has a faster qualifying time than the others. Is he making up any ground? He was faster. Well, no, he was around the same.
Well, and talk about like advances in our sport. The fact that we have the technology to tell us exactly what the athletes are splitting. I remember all of my coaches used to have these split books out, and you'd have an athlete that would be taking splits during the distance and actually during every race, but we would move the split book around of who didn't race that day, and you'd be taking down the time, and then we'd do the math backwards, and now we just have to look up at the board and it tells us exactly what they're splitting every time.
It's a lot of work for, you know, if you weren't in the race, a lot of people are just zoned out.
Oh yeah, well, the good news is we weren't on our cell phones, so over time that's something that's definitely changed, but we had no distractions. We were, in a sense, as much as maybe some of our athletes were taking splits, it allowed us to all be kind of present, and you were all focusing on the races even if you weren't swimming them. So I actually really enjoyed doing that. It allowed you to be in the moment.
Still a pretty good race between lanes 3 and 6. Debreu and Janvier. We're going to touch, so there'll be 400 meters to go. Debreu is going to be ahead here in a second.
And dropping down right now, actually in lane number 1, Carter Robert Anderson, 32.3 on that 50. So he's up with some of the leaders. He's still back a little right now, but he's seeming to build into this race. So we'll keep an eye on him with 350 to go, see if he can make a little push towards the leaders.
Well, we had a dramatic finish last night in our women's 800-meter final when Julia Strojnowska came out of, well, kind of nowhere to knock off Emma Finland in that last 50-meter stretch, and ended up winning the race by 0.12 of a second. Finland had been the leader for about 500 meters or more.
And even she was pretty shocked after that performance. She was not expecting to do an interview after or to get acknowledged here. They were unfortunately quite off the Olympic qualifying time, but she's still the national champion, and to come here at Olympic trials and perform and to close out the race like that, a lot for her and her coach to be excited about.
Well, she has the whole gamut, the whole range of medals, gold, silver, and bronze she picked up this week in the Olympic trials. None of them got her a spot on the Olympic team, but it's a big step in the right direction.
Definitely is.
Last split, the quickest was by Debreu in 3 at 32.0. And he is definitely showing to be the man to beat in this race.
And quickly talk about a few of the athletes that you can keep an eye on in this race later tonight. Eric Brown, the fastest so far this year, or this season at least, came in December. He's entered with a 15:18.02. Timothy Barbeau, the champion of the 800 freestyle, will be swimming. He's having a really great meet so far. One of our junior national team members looking to surge toward that senior team. Alex Axon is the 3rd fastest so far this year. His time 15:35 from the Pan Am Games.
He was signing autographs last night, the 200 and 400 meter winner.
He was. Yeah, he's had another strong meet as well. He was off the standard in the 400, but with the win in the 200, he'll be likely named tonight to the team. It looks like he's not actually racing in that final tonight, but he is the 3rd fastest this year, so I just wanted to mention his name. He's chosen to opt out. He said, I'm good with my 200 free. I don't want to do the 15.
I was just kidding about that. So that opens up a spot for somebody else.
Potential, although that Olympic qualifying time, 15 minutes flat, 0.99. It's going to be about a 23-second drop for our leader, or our entrant leader, Timothy Barbeau.
Here comes the bell, Brittany, for William Debreu. He's going to get it first. When he touches, there'll be less than 100 meters to go. 2 laps in this men's 1,500-meter freestyle final.
And the race for second is close. And already off the wall there for the University of Calgary. What a turn for Nathan Versluis, who's put himself back in contention at 31.75. He's chasing at the moment.
Well, he's going to need that and more because William Debreu is still going along pretty nicely, 32.2 in that last 50. See how much Versluis has in the tank. He would need to absolutely rip the final lap. He needs to channel his inner Josh Liendo to have a chance here, and I don't think that's...
Speaking of Josh Liendo, out of the corner of my eye, I was watching him do some autographs this morning, so what a really great leader for the future generation of swimmers.
William Debreu is going to win this 1,500-meter heat. And he will touch under 16 minutes, 15:58.38. Here comes Versluis in second in 16:03, followed by Hugo Janvier, who was in the lead for a good chunk of this race.
And that appears to be the first time under 16 minutes, which we talk a lot about barriers, but this one feels quite good to get under 15:58.38. Big smiles there, William Debreu. And faster than his entry by 7 seconds, 8 seconds. My math in the moment isn't good, you'll learn. But I like to be approximate.
There you go. I think that's fair. I mean, there must be some, I've noticed a lot of swimmers are like mechanical engineering or mathematics, so obviously they're good with all the numbers, but there must be some who are in the liberal arts and they're like,
yes.
Yeah, I don't know, around 4, 5, 6 seconds.
Honestly, a lot of athletes just in general, you see a lot of kinesiology, a lot that stay in like sports science of different capacities. Some take my path a little in the media space that want to stay involved in sport, and then there really is a little bit of everything. I know quite a few nurses as well, so others working in healthcare. But swimming, I mean, I know I'm a little bit biased, but there are quite a lot of really smart swimmers and a lot that really challenge. It almost, without exception, causes you to have to be a really studious athlete. You have to be able to balance both from a young age, right? Like these kids are hitting high performance at 13, 14, and so already before you even get to high school, you have to know what it's like to balance a program, to time manage, to work hard towards things, to spend your Sunday nights after a meet studying for your test on Monday, and it really brings out the best in a lot of athletes, and it's something that I'm really grateful for after my career, that I was already able to balance multiple priorities in my life, and so far it's really helped me for sure.
You're managing it brilliantly. Let's go through the 10 in this race. In lane 0, bottom of your screen is Andrew Chilton, then Parker Chan, Noah Weaver, Dominic Kui Chen, Logan Sparks in 4, Minhyuk Park in 5, Nicholas Purdy, Brian Dietz, Eric Hu, and Renaud Trudel round out this field in this 1,500-meter race 2 of 4 here in the morning.
And we got quite a big age range. I sometimes like to chat a little bit about, you know, our juniors in the final and who has the potential. These heats are actually seeded from fastest through slowest. So that first heat, that time of 16:58 is probably most likely going to be our top seed going into the final tonight. The athletes in this heat are ranged anywhere from entry times of 16:21 through 16:28. And as I mentioned, age-wise, everywhere from 16 years old to 21 years old.
Is there a sense that doing a 1,500 just kind of makes you tougher? Like once you do it, you just kind of feel like you're tougher?
This is the hard part because you're asking the distance freestyler. I'm a little biased. I would like to think so.
Yeah.
If you're asking the 50 freestyler, they would love to tell you about the challenges within being a sprinter as well. So there's a lot of, you know, that battle back and forth of what your strength is because they're just different muscle groups, right? This is endurance. This is having a kind of, I don't know, in my opinion, like work on the longer hours. Your practices are a little bit challenging in a different way. And then the sprinters, they have to spend a lot more time in the weight room and building their speed and building their strength. And it's just it's a whole different approach. Right, exactly. Something I definitely did not have. So I am a little biased. I would say I definitely felt more, I mean, some of my best distance races, like there is no greater feeling than hearing that bell and then right after it touching the wall. and knowing if you've gone a lifetime best, or because it's a long race to do, knowing you're kind of out of the mix. And so there's been, I always say to any young kids I talk to, there's almost everyone has an experience where you know based on the first couple strokes if it's going to feel good or if it's going to be a challenging race. And so it is a complete mental battle. Yeah, it's a complete mental battle to stay the course. You know, if you're popping well, if you feel good in the water. I mean, sometimes you don't know exactly the pace you're holding, but you can kind of know if it's going to be in pain. And for me, someone that I had a lot of shoulder injuries, so I would know within the first 50 if my shoulder was going to be a problem or not. And so some of these athletes, if you let your mind remove you from the race before your body can, I think that's when you're putting yourself at a disservice. So staying the course, making sure you're getting through each lap once at a time, not over-analyzing the race. I think it's easy to just say, okay, well, I still have 23 laps to go. Instead, say, okay, I'm going to swim the next 100 strong and get into my rhythm. I'm going to swim the next 100 strong and get into my rhythm, and continue to just build through the race and compartmentalize it a little bit. Always helped for me.
Well, the athlete in lane number 2, Noah Weaver. And do you know, I should have asked you this off air, not on air, if he is related to Liam Weaver, who we saw in the final of the 50 free?
I don't, but that would be a nice family connection. It also would be a tough sibling dynamic for one of you to be a 50
I guess.
freestyler.
That's exactly what we've been talking about.
Yeah, if my sister, well, in my family we had my sister swam the 200 and below freestyle, and I swam the 200 and above freestyle. So although we swam some overlap, there was still kind of a different focus event. And so for some families you will see, you know, one of them might be a lot taller, one of them might be a lot stronger, or one of them might be a lot more coordinated. So there's a little bit of everything.
Brittany, for the rest between now and Paris, will you be, trying to find video of all the other national championships? The easy ones to find will be the U.S. and Australia. But like, are you looking for all these? Because all those trials are going to be really interesting too. Great Britain's already had theirs.
Yes, I am so excited for both the U.S. and Australian Olympic trials. You know, often with some of these swimmers too, where the fields are so deep across their countries, we don't know necessarily, like, could Emma McKeon be swimming the 100 freestyle? We don't know that yet.
Right.
Is she, you know, every athlete has to earn their spot in specific events, and some of these athletes that are strong swimming countries, you never really know. So until now, we can't really predict the Olympic field until we've seen the trials, and it makes it as a fan so exciting. I'm also just, you know, a big swim nerd. I love watching racing. I love getting to tune into fast swimming, so I'll definitely be keeping a close eye on both of those trials for sure.
You and Devin asked me last night how I would prepare, and that was one of the ways that I prepared for Tokyo, is watching as many of the other national championships. As mentioned, U.S. and Australia a lot easier. You just get a sense of the field, and for me, I was even watching to see how the commentators were handling things, and the interaction between them and the rhythm of all of that. So all of those things are so important.
Well, and I think too, just like when I was swimming, I always said I was constantly still learning. I was constantly still improving. And those of you that have been in the industry for quite some time, there's still so much left to learn. And I think everyone's really good on this CBC team and Swimming Canada team to be able to understand that there's work to be done, and we can all continue to absorb all the information possible to get ready for Paris ourselves, and everyone working in different capacities, but really looking forward to working with you there as well, Rob.
Should be a blast. The Olympic years and Paralympic years are so much fun. And for me, they've been such a big part of my life, literally since 1992, before you were born.
Well, because this is a distance race and we have some chances to chat, I know you're really involved as well as on the volleyball side. I know the women's team has had quite a week.
Oh, incredible. Alexa Gray's the captain of the team. Bree King is the setter on the team. They're playing in Brazil right now, which, by the way, I'm going to later today to watch some of the men's volleyball, or to commentate on some of the men's volleyball Nations League. And Kira Van Rijk, the 3 of the stars on the team I just mentioned, and yeah, they have not qualified yet for Paris. People don't realize how, it's tough in any sport to qualify for the Olympic Games. It is really tough. Swimming is obviously really tough. We've seen some of the standards, and then we have a winner, but in a team sport, there's just so few teams that get to go, and And sometimes you'll have a team that was a medalist in one cycle, and they don't even make the games the next time around. That's how tough it is. So Canada's only 6 teams have qualified so far, and Canada is in a really good spot, but they need to be really good throughout this section of the Volleyball Nations League. So yeah, thanks for asking me about that.
Of course, no, and I think it is important. I also get the privilege to work across different sports on the Olympic and Paralympic side, and I'm constantly just trying to keep the next 3 months is all just different team announcements. And so we give team announcements. We'll have one later in the pool tonight, but as one Team Canada, there are so many different things to look forward to toward this summer, and gaining momentum here at the pool only gets me that much more excited for other sports as well. And I know my husband's looking forward. He's got tickets to the medal rounds of the beach volleyball, so we also have quite a team in beach volleyball on the women's side.
Arguably the best venue at the games. I mean, some fans would argue that the pool, but it's going to be outside under the Eiffel Tower, or near the Eiffel Tower.
Right, and everybody back home, if you're listening, I challenge you to a quick Google, look up the venue, the Paris Beach Volleyball venue, and at the 2 Olympic Games that I've got the privilege to be at on the summer side, I don't think I've seen an environment quite like beach volleyball. Everybody really gets into it. The chants are engaging. The countries get behind it. It's a really, really great spectator sport because, of course, you know, the intricacies, if you are within the sport, are important, but you don't have to know a ton of rules. It's really easy to follow. The crowd gets you involved. The commentators get involved. I love the camaraderie of the fans in the stands. And yeah, that one was one I said, once I knew he was going to be traveling to Paris, I said, we've got to do what we can to try to buy those tickets.
Let's quickly update fans on this race. Logan Sparks in the lead. He is in lane 4. And then we've got Noah Weaver in lane 2 on this side of the yellow markings, a couple lanes in. And then we've got Nicholas Purdy.
Right now, though, lane 6, 7, and 8, that's Purdy, Dietz, and Hu, all touching within 0.2 of a second of each other. So that's shaping up to be quite a close race.
We've got a little race within a race. And, you know, speaking of races within races, just to get back to the beach volleyball for a second, the interesting thing about qualifying in beach volleyball is you have countries like Brazil and USA and Switzerland in beach volleyball that are so strong they could qualify 3, 4, or 5 teams, but they're only allowed 2.
Yeah.
Just like in swimming.
Swimming, the 200 IM is a great example. We could have potential to send 4 that would make a second swim, a semi, or a final, and yet we can only do 2. So it is across the board. And speak about just a completely other playing field. Their Olympic qualification happened within a 2-year span, right? So it's accumulation of multiple results. And then we see the opposite here at the pool where you have one chance and one chance only.
Yeah. And what a lot of those teams did, they had some of the teams had really good years last year, and they're basically resting as much as they can this year, only entering in some of the bigger meets because their ranking points are so high.
Yeah.
They don't need to fool with them, and they'll come into the games differently than some of the other teams who are scrambling to get there.
Right, but you know what? It is such a sport that is unforgiving in a sense, because you could be ranked one of the favorites and have one off day, and all of a sudden you're way out of the tournament. And we saw kind of the disappointment from Melissa Jimena Paredes and Sarah Pavin at the last games, where they came in with high expectations and unfortunately we're just off the podium contention. But this time we have Brandy and Mel looking really strong so far.
Yeah,
so
and
that's going to be an exciting one.
Sarah Pavin and Molly McBain are in, at last check, we're in a spot, but it's really tough. And then we actually have another team that's pushing Sophie Bukovic and Heather Bansley. So Canada also one of those teams on the women's side that is close to having 2 and 3 teams in contention. Well, this race is getting interesting. Logan Sparks in lane 4 leading and has for much of the way here. But there is 2 or 3 who are thinking they might want to challenge him.
Keep an eye on lane 7. Brian Dietz from eSwim splits fastest in the field on that 50, and he's separated. It was a 3-man race with 200 back. Now he is separating from the pack.
From your old club.
Yeah. Tobico Swimming, born and raised. Very proud to represent eSwim.
How about the representation we had last night from the Oakville Club?
That was really special. Katie Cosgriff said right away in her post-race interview how much she heard them. And we've seen that almost every night, a busload from one team Oakville had at least 2 to 3 bus loads. I think there was 100+ kids here.
Wow.
But that is really what this meet's all about, right? I tell every swimmer when you're learning, the best thing you can do is just absorb it, to witness it, to see it, to learn it. And so I love watching the age group programs come up and get to witness some greatness. And they were here for Katie Cosgrove, their teammate, qualifying through to the Paralympic Games this summer.
Brian Dietz continues to put pressure on the leader, Logan Sparks. Better turn, though, for Sparks, and now Dietz has got a bit more work to do.
Yeah, but Dietz still not really involving his legs, which bodes well for that final push. He's got a nice rhythm. He's getting in a lot of breath. He's breathing to the left, so not really clear if he's seeing the leader. And often people ask me, Rob, if do you know where you are in the race when you're swimming? You would like to think you have a good idea. Some athletes, you really have a good peripheral and you're paying really close attention. Other times,
wow,
it is really challenging.
That last split, 32-3 for Brian Dietz. You are right, Brittany. Now he's still not really activating his feet much.
No, to be someone that's really building into this race, he still looks nice and relaxed. So if I had to predict a heat winner, it's going to be him out in lane number 7. I almost said lane 2 because it's hard to remember when the top of the pool and the bottom of the pool, but that's lane number 7, Brian Dietz. And knowing he's there now, you can see breathing over to his side. Our race leader at the moment is still Sparks. He's looking over and making sure he stays in this race.
I'm not going to lie, I'm looking forward to that part of Paris, having the lanes back to 1 at the top and 8 at the bottom.
It is a little tricky when you're backwards, for sure.
Especially when the sheets come in the other way around.
Don't print those ones off the night before, I will say. They never know. You never know what can happen.
Logan Sparks just barely in the lead at that last touch.
And it's changed.
Yep. Brian Dietz has got the lead. He went 32-3. He is turning. He is really turning it up here.
And Brian Dietz entry time at 16:26.56. So we'll keep an eye on that. Likely going to drop some time. It's only got 100 to go, so we'll hear the music to their ears, the bell lap, which means they have 100 left of this 1500.
Reminds me of when I once, what you just said reminds me of when I once asked a rower, I said, what's your favorite part of the race? And I thought she'd give me like this profound answer about the muscles and pulling, and then she said, when it's over.
I know a lot of people ask me if I miss swimming, and I miss being a part of a team. I miss representing something greater than myself, but I was never one that genuinely loved to race. I think you put so much work into practice, you put a lot of pressure on yourself as an athlete, and I love so many elements of what the sport's given me, but I have to admit that I don't really miss this kind of pain right now.
32.07 on that last 50 for Brian Dietz, and he is in the lead. Is there any response from Logan Sparks?
It looks to be Sparks coming on, making this an exciting finish here in heat number 2.
It's between those two for first. Third place is Noah Weaver in lane 2, but here they come, and Sparks has got the lead back again from Dietz, and he's going to touch first in 16:20.07. And 16:21 is still 5 seconds faster for Dietz than his time.
Yeah, exactly what you want to see here, especially, in these heats when it takes over 16 minutes to do your race. It is a little discouraging when you go through all that work and you're just slightly over your personal best. So both of them can leave here with a PB, as is our third place finisher as well out in lane number 2. That was Noah Weaver. Closed really strong with a 30.45. But talk about closing strong. Logan Sparks there, 29.0 on the final 50.
Wow.
So maybe that push could have happened a little earlier. He'll chat with his coach about it. That was an exciting way to end off our second heat. We have 2 more here this morning, and then 2 more will be contested this evening.
All right, here we go. Heat number 3, lane 0 is Matthew Strada. Then it's Mr. Damour in lane 1, Xavier Lavoie in 2, Riley Carswell's in 3, Oliver Blanchard, Alex Yeo in the middle lanes, David Cortez, Oliver Thompson, Yannick Morgans and Aidan Giorfi. We had a couple of Olivers here, and that made me think of Oliver Dawson, who won the 200-meter breast. That was among my favorite moments of the week. Just the way this young man, 16-year-old, came on and just it pulls out that win.
Well, it proves too that everybody has their own strengths and race strategies, and you got to stick to your own plan. And he knows coming home that any race is the potential to be his if he just sets his mind to it and absolutely just put the hammer down. I felt bad for the rest that were in that heat, because if you're ever racing Oliver Dawson now, you're knowing that you're no lead is safe. Not at all.
No, that's a good point.
As you mentioned, Oliver Blanchard, the fastest seed in this heat, 14 years old, so pretty young here.
And he is going right to the lead in lane 4. And he's not fooling around either. A 31.17, his first, or that last lap.
Yeah, I always say in like the 300 to 400 range is when we really have to start keeping an eye on their splits, because some of these athletes will get out really excited and quick, and
right.
It takes a couple 100s to get into that expected pacing zone. And you do want to make the most of what we call that easy speed. So off the top, you're going to zip a little different. You're not fatigued yet. You want to get into the race. Often you want to get the lead out. So if someone's in lane 4 and you want to be able to push the pace, it's important to do that from the start. But other athletes, as mentioned, just like to build into the race. You don't want to let the race leaders get too far ahead of you, though.
Well, if you've just joined us, where have you been all morning? But also, you missed a Canadian record performance in the 100 butterfly in the morning heats. Josh Leando said, yep, never mind, I'm just going to blow it out. And he did.
And like I said, there was still things he can fine-tune for tonight, which makes me very excited. He's about 3/10 off of getting under that 50-second barrier, so that would be really cool to see the first ever Canadian that is able to do it. And again, I'm still looking at my peripherals, and I'm still seeing him signing autographs.
Where?
He's over in the corner.
Oh, yeah.
In the warm-down pool. But literally, there's NIAC athletes, and that's a really cool story. He's training now and racing for the University of Florida, but he will never let go of his roots, and I always love seeing that as an athlete. He proudly represents the North York Aquatic Club.
Yep.
He remembers where he came from and what's helped him get to the place he is today, and he's such a great leader for those young kids.
You know, another thing I've noticed is a lot of the clubs have had shirts made up for these Olympic trials.
Yep.
And I keep wanting to like tap people on the shoulder and say, hey, can I buy that shirt? Because I really like that.
They have really great design. That was actually one of my favorite things about qualifying for my first Olympic trials. We got like a special shirt for eSwim for just the Olympic trials, and it really does help. I always say with team, when you want to walk in as a team, like you would as a a college basketball team, or right now we're seeing in the women's, the PWHL, like they do this big hoopla over their entry into the stadium and the walk-ins, and it's all about the style and the outfit. But there is something to be said for looking cohesive as a team, for feeling professional. And it doesn't matter how young you are, if you're on a meet like this, and you have to understand the importance of representing the team that you're here to represent. So I do love watching them get their new outfits and to represent them proudly and to look cohesive as one.
The two Olivers are 1 and 2 right now, and they both had identical, sorry, 1 out of 32.83, 1 out of 32.93. Anyway, they are sitting 1 and 2. One in Oliver Blanchard in 4, Oliver Thompson in 7. And Thompson in 7, slightly ahead now. A long way to go, though, in this 1,500-meter freestyle timed final. Thompson in 7 came in with a 16:32 clocking. And the Oliver in lane 4 with a 16:29 seed time.
They're building well into this race, settling into that standard of kind of pacing of the race. 32.3 for Oliver, as mentioned. We have two Olivers. There you go.
Yeah.
So Thompson and Blanchard, but maybe they just met in a little Oliver club beforehand and decided they were going to lead this race. That'd be fun.
I love the coaches walking along, waving their arms.
And I was joking earlier that I think they put in more mileage than some of the swimmers on these because they have multiple athletes across multiple heats. And I was also mentioning, you know, to the question, can you see your coach along the side of the pool? You can usually see movement, you can usually hear noise. Whether you can hear a specific voice or whether you can see a specific sign is up to the athlete and depending on maybe what lane you're in as well. But in theory, if you take a breath to that side, you should be able to see, you know, are people jumping up and down? Is your coach maybe doing the movement up and down with the arms, which means kind of legs? So bring in the kick, bring in the kick. But right now, yeah, we're watching about 4 coaches go up and down the pool slowly, but that'll pick up the pace as the athletes pick up the pace.
Well, the most famous international coach who patrols the sidelines is Dean Boxall from Australia, Aaron Titmus's coach, and a bunch of others, of course. And of course, he has got more animated kind of that motion going on than anybody else.
You love to see it. I get so excited when you can watch the coaches celebrate the success because they put in the same amount of hours. It might be a different type of work, but they're truly the one you spend more time. You spend more time with your coach than you do your family on an Olympic year. You spend more time with your coach than sometimes your partner. So it really is, it means a lot when athletes have a supportive coach and someone they can celebrate in their successes with.
Oliver Thompson's coach is wearing the red shirt, just like he's wearing the red cap. And he is literally just going, he's easily going to do 1,500 meters and then whatever side-to-side walking he does.
I think that's actually his teammate. His coach is in a darker shirt with the red sleeves. He's just passing by, but that is actually a friend of his teammate. But he is truly logging the miles here, which is great because they're the ones that are putting in the practice together. So it's awesome to see the support here. And it's the last day of the preliminary session. So, you know, it's really easy to be, oh, I'm too tired, or, oh, I want to go home. It's been a long week. But you stay the course with your team and you accomplish as one.
What are the hand signals? What do they mean?
Yeah, it depends. So sometimes just the general wave. You can see the program at the top there with the white paper. He's just trying to push along. That like movement of just forward motion.
Right.
The wave is just a general. When they do, we'll see it maybe near the end of this race when they go up and down in like a scissor motion with their arms. That means bring the legs in because as athletes, we get into the rhythm with our arms, but often you kind of forget to bring in the legs. So that's where there's a reminder of keep your legs in, keep your legs in. Our leader right now doesn't look like he needs that reminder at the moment. Thompson is kicking quite well. But yeah, just that like initial wave is really just moving them along. Sometimes you see a double-handed fist pump in a sense, and that means you're doing good, you're doing good. So kind of encouraging them that the pace that they're on is a good pace.
So we are halfway through this 1,500 meter. Oliver Thompson touches an 8:04.31. And his coach is also at his teammate is also at 8:04.31, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. It took me a second there, Rob, to figure it out. But talk about the halfway point. You know, that's pacing right along, close to that 16-minute mark, a little over. But someone that has potential to negative split this race is he's been building within each 50.
That was a 33 flat for Thompson to 800 meters and 8:37 and change.
And all the times are rated equal across each heat, so he can put himself in the mix of the heat before and even the heat before that.
Matthew Strada in lane 0, kind of flying under the radar. He is in second place here. So third place is Xavier Lavoie, who is in lane number 2. Fourth, Oliver Blanchard, the other Oliver, in lane 4, but it is still the leadership of Oliver Thompson up in lane number 7. With his coaches all, I think there's 3 of them all there. You can see them at the top of the screen, kind of walking with him. Love that teamwork, love that camaraderie. You can help your teammates set a lifetime best result at the Olympic trials, and that is something. 900 meters and 9:49.7 for, check that, 900 meters in 9:43.8 for Oliver Thompson. the other Oliver. So now second place is Xavier Lavoie, and third place is Matthew Strada, who's in lane 0, the lane that we have to keep aware not to forget, because it's kind of below our vantage point here. We have to make sure we tip up the chair and look down to keep an eye on the likes of Matthew Strada.
There's the kicking motion. You can see from the coach. Just going that up and down. That's what I was trying to describe, the scissor kick, making sure your legs are back involved.
Is that early to be kicking?
I mean, it's not necessarily you have to kick an all-out kick, but it's just a little bit of a reminder for the athletes to make sure you're keeping your legs in the mix, because they're truly not putting in nearly as much work as the arms. So it is really important to keep them in the picture. It's not a final push yet. He will make a final push in a couple hundred, but still pacing way under his entry time.
Brittany, I have to say, I forget what race it was at the Olympic trials in 2021. It was the 800 when Summer McIntosh broke your record, I think. And you, because you are one of few people who were allowed in the building,
I was.
Were walking, you were doing the exact thing, walking back. And of course, there was nobody in the seats here in front of us because no one was allowed to be here.
And I honestly, similar to this trials, I was on the call in the morning, but then I wasn't on it at night. So I was able to get access to the building and tried to make the most of it, because there was no one really able to fill the stand.
Yeah.
It was truly a couple of their teammates, but even their teammates, after their events, there was a protocol to make sure that they weren't bunching up and getting too close to one another. So talk about a different time, but I always tried to make the most of the fact that I could be in the facility to support the athletes, and so excited to watch all of my records be broken by Summer McIntosh. I don't think there's anyone more deserving and anyone to be more excited about it. And if it's going to go down, Rob, it's going to go down by quite a lot. And she just broke the 800 free a couple months ago by, I don't know, 6 to 7 seconds. So that was quite a dominating performance from McIntosh.
Now, I think some people are wondering, if she beat Katie Ledecky in an 800 this year, why isn't she going to race her at the Olympics?
Well, I'm still holding on to hope, Rob. That's all I got to say. So basically, the way it works with the program is because she's already named to the team, and there was no one in the 800 freestyle that got under the Olympic A standard for Canada, she could race the event. So we don't have to completely lose hope.
Right.
But her program is tremendously busy, and
right.
her and her coach have worked a little bit more toward these IM races, which is why she is going to choose the 200 IM tonight. Now that would be on the same day as the 800 freestyle at the Olympics. If you're asking me just as a swim fan, it's the last race, so in my head I'm like, let's just do it to try it. But yes, obviously she has a lot of other things to swim, and there's a mental and physical hurdle to every race you do. So it will be a tight program, but a decision that will come in the leading months to the games, and one that's very exciting. But yeah, it truly, when you're top in the world in so many events, you have to be smart about your program. And unfortunately for us fans, not unfortunately for Summer, but unfortunately for us fans, it is a challenging day for her to have to do multiple events. So it looks as of now like she's going to choose the 200 AM.
Maybe, I'm sure you know this, but maybe you don't. Did you know that Summer was a Jeopardy question?
I did. I saw it recently. She was a Jeopardy
basically,
question.
the question was, this swimmer from Canada, Summer McIntosh, handed this American swimmer, I'm paraphrasing, her first loss in the 800 meters in however many years. And then so that person had to name Katie Ledecky, of course.
Well, and talk about the success and the dominance of an athlete. I mean, Chris mentioned it on the call yesterday for the 800 freestyle. Summer's the second fastest to ever do this event after her 811 a few months ago. And the top 16 times in the world ever are all Katie Ledecky.
Yeah.
So impressive. But back to impressive, this heat is shaping up to be quite exciting.
Yes, it is, because the leadership has changed. Xavier Lavoie, who just did a 32.6, has the lead he went 1,300 meters in 14.11. And slowing down quite a bit is Oliver Thompson in lane 7. With that last 50 in 34.0, so he is not feeling it quite the same anymore. Still in second place, though.
And this is where it makes a difference that his teammates and his coaches are going up and down the pool, because you're starting to feel quite a lot of pain and you need all the support you can get. Not only does it feel good to have the support, but it's also a reminder of the people that have gotten you to this point, the people that have worked so hard right beside you through it all, and you could see the gestures and the beautiful sound of the bell. 100 to go here in the men's 1500.
Xavier Lavoie at the bell at 15:17. He's gonna trying to power his way home, and now there's a challenge for second place. It is lane 7. That is Oliver Thompson trying to hold on, but it's lane 6, David Cortez, who is looking like he's going to overtake him.
And they're going to be a little bit under, it appears, their entry times, which is great. We'll make note of who was able to drop time, but absolutely making a really big push here in lane number 6, David Cortez. 32-1 on that 50.
Thompson feels him now, and now he's really got the feet activated, but it is the swimmer up in lane number 2, Xavier Lavoie, who is probably going to win this. He is going to win this. Let's watch the clock and let's watch the battle for second. Thompson just ahead of Cortez. 16:22 the time for Lavoie, and Cortez just sneaks past Thompson in that final 20 meters or so.
And in the 800 free, we saw our favorite celebration of the meet so far from Xavier Lavoie, and he just did it again here. What an exceptional reaction. Doesn't matter what heat it is, when you see an athlete that excited for their performance, it's contagious, it really is. A big celebration and a big fist pump here. I think he lost his cap partway through that race, but he doesn't care in that moment. He just went a lifetime best. He just dropped about 10 seconds off his entry time, only 16 years old, Xavier Lavoie from Natation Gatineau.
If he just had a hairdo like Jason Pratt and Devin and I, it would be fine.
Yep, all good. He wouldn't need it. At least he doesn't have Reed Maxwell's hairdo. That would have really slowed him down.
Oh yeah, that would have been like a boat anchor.
Well, that was an exciting finish. Again, these races might be 16 minutes long, but they've really proven to keep us on our toes. Here is the final morning swim for our time finals. There will be 4 athletes in the pool, and it appears to be actually 3 athletes in the pool. Lane 5 has chosen not to swim it.
So it is in lane 3, Alexandru Veluccio. Lane 4, Nicholas Skavinsky, and lane 6, Alex Camarer. No start for Kieran Benson. Looking for coaches prowling the sidelines. Haven't seen any yet.
It is early. The coaches, just like the athletes, need to build into the race a little bit too, Rob.
Good point. Who were your coaches growing up, Brittany?
Well, in the age group program at eSwim, I'm looking across, and some of them are still coaching, which is really cool. I saw Chris Bell earlier this weekend. I also was coached by Rob Novak, who's now at the High Performance Center here with Ryan Millett. And then my coach that got me to my first Olympic Games and my second Olympic Games, Kevin Thorburn, who we lost tragically 3-4 years ago now, was really one of the coaches too that helped the start of Summer McIntosh's career. So I've really gotten to enjoy her career through the lens of his eyes, and it is a really special moment for me to get to continue to watch her success, knowing where it all started and the program where it began. I was super fortunate as well to have some great college coaches in Harvey Humphreys at the University of Georgia. But I truly do believe, there's so many special coaches across the board on these Canadian teams, and a coach really has the ability to set you up for success in life, and the way that they guide you when you're younger, it changes how you look really at your future in so many different aspects. And one of my favorite part about some of my coaches is, they wanted me to be really successful in the pool, but they also just wanted to see me do well beyond the pool. And so some of the athletes, I know my sister has gotten the chance to see Tom Johnson this week, who was her university coach, and she was able to bring her first daughter over to the pool to watch it. And so it is a full life cycle moment. We saw Anime Pierce in the crowd with her 4 children the other night. And so, as much as in these moments when you're 15, 16, it feels like swimming is the only thing, it gains a lot of perspective as life goes on to be able to see these people that helped guide you through a really monumental point in your life, and now get to introduce them to your first children and your husbands and your wives and your partners. It goes a long way.
Well, I love that you mentioned Anna Mae Pierce, because I've been mentioning her name for years because she still holds Canadian records, and then she often will comment on things and say, hey, love watching you and Byron, or something like that, or like very positive energy. And I've been dying to meet her. So finally at this meet...
You hadn't met her.
I hadn't met her, and that she came up and introduced herself. But she was hanging out with one of the great Canadian goaltenders in hockey on the women's side ever, Sammy Jo Small.
I heard rumors.
And they're friends, and they're good friends. And I know Sammy Jo pretty well.
Yeah.
And so I said to her a while ago, if you're ever somewhere and I'm there, and Anna Mae's there, I want to meet her. So she actually kind of brought her over.
Amazing.
And I love how when you see that, the connection with different athletes from different sports. And
well, exactly that. I saw Marnie McBean was up there cheering on Team Canada 2 nights ago. We've seen countless different alumni. Tricia Smith will be representing the COC tonight at the team announcements. She's been here throughout the week, whether you retired last year or 20, 30, 40 years ago. Staying connected with sport, to me, is something I hope to do forever. I know for you, it's been a really massive part about your career and the one that you're leading. It is so fun to see different alumni that are coming out to support the next generation, and especially when it's at a trials like this, where you get to watch new dreams and new generations of athletes chasing.
Yeah, it's really, I said to you and Devin yesterday when you asked me about sort of the craft of broadcasting, I talked about it. It feels to me like it's being in the fray. It's as close to being in the action as I was as an athlete, as I can be as a non-athlete in a way. I guess a coach would be, I've never been that interested in being a coach, I mean, other than at my kids' minor programs or whatever. Yeah. But I remember Jack Donahue, I don't know if you know that name, he used to coach Canada's men's national team, and he did a lot of public basketball. And he used to coach a lot of, do a lot of public speaking, and he said that the coach was the most important person of the unimportant people.
It is. It is.
In a way,
well,
right?
It's often due to people that don't get, too much time in the limelight, and you don't hear their names. And someone whose names I love heard throughout the week was Nicholas Bennett's coach, Haley, his sister. She's been such a guiding light for him. He is so good at every time and every chance he gets, he tries to highlight her. And he said to me earlier that, when I want my resume to look like her resume, and I want vice versa, I want to be able to lead myself to the success because of the way that she's led me. And he really takes that into account when he races and feels the weight of wanting to make his sister proud, but also to be able to give her the experiences that they've worked so hard towards together, and it's definitely special.
And by the way, the other broadcast team that will be coming on later today, they are just like 10 feet away from us. Jason Pratt and Byron McDonald, they're looking over our shoulder just in case we, leave the headsets, I think, and they're going to grab them. So.
I don't think they want to jump in for the 1500s often, although that one session that was going till 2 p.m., I joked with Byron if he wanted to jump on and relieve me for a few minutes. But truly, Rob, we love this job. We love getting to do what we do. It is such a pleasure and privilege, and acknowledging this is my last heat and yours as well throughout the program. I know I'm still very new to this, but I'm constantly learning from pros like you. So just thank you for spending the time, and for everybody that's shared on socials and shared their feedback with us as well. We really appreciate you taking the time, and I have a ton to learn still. So I do hear you, and I listen, and when it's a name pronunciation, if you want to let us know of something we could do better, we're always all ears wide open. We want to get better, especially leading towards the Olympics and Paralympics this summer. So continue to tune in and continue to keep us in the loop. But what a privilege it is to get to call some of the best racing in Canadian sport here at these trials, day number 7.
And while you were talking and saying all those nice things, our producer, Larry Isaac, was talking in my ear and reminding us that, yes, it's been a great day, and yes, this is one of our last heats, but we've got a swim-off yet to call, Brittany, as we often do.
I can't jinx it too early, but yes, a swim-off. I mean, if you have a swim-off, too, they've now waited almost an hour through distance heats, so they will be well-rested. These athletes will be ready to go. I have no doubt.
Women's 50 free, a swim-off for the B final. We have Amy Tian against Ellen Howe coming up.
And that's a great example of just getting another opportunity to race, right? This is, you know, to get into that B final would be awesome, but coming to these trials and going through the motions, racing is the best training you can do. So great to see them getting another opportunity, whether they qualify through or not.
And that's actually one of these races where it's a race to be the first alternate.
Well, even more important that they get the chance. And honestly, sometimes that changes the coach's perspective as to whenever we have alternates, the first thing is they ask the coaches to marshal. So some people opt out of a swim off if they have maybe a busy schedule or they're not interested in swimming in the finals. It does happen. So the choice that both these athletes have made to swim off for alternate, they're acknowledging the opportunity to race again. They're acknowledging that they might not get another chance. So it is important that they do it here while they can. It's great to see. Speaking of great to see, an East swimmer leading in the distance race. I love seeing it. Lane number 4, of course, right now, Nicholas Stravinsky. Splitting well in the 33 range. He's kind of got clear water. He's making the most. Halfway through this right now, 8:13.50.
Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. Training, how many times have you had a chance to train or race outdoors?
So here in Canada, not a ton. When I trained in training trips or training camps, we would mostly go to locations that were outside, whether it was Florida. I did a few in Barbados. I did a couple internationally. A lot of my Olympic prep camps, so being on the national team, there's what's called a staging camp. So before they go to the games, you like to acclimatize to both the culture and the time zone of where you're going to be competing. So they'll be likely somewhere in France preparing. So those we technically tried to swim outside. Most locations, it is nice to get a little bit of vitamin D, to get some fresh air, to get I mean, it's a little harder for backstrokers, to be honest. You don't tend to see it internationally outside at the actual competition level. A few times in Australia. Actually, my Canadian record in the 1500 is from an outdoor pool in Australia. 15:57 from the Pan Pacs in I almost said 2018, but I was retired in 2016, so it must have been 2014. You know what's throwing me off? I think the Commonwealth Games were in Australia in 2018.
Right.
I'm now so deep into my broadcast mindset, I don't even remember what myself I was swimming, but yeah, so I've gotten the chance to swim outside. Now, it makes a bigger difference for the backstrokers because we're so used to reading the ceiling, you're used to pacing, the sun can really get in the way. So if there is an international competition that is planned outside, it is important that these athletes do some training outside.
Right.
If you see a little bit of an extra dark skin tone or some goggle tans on some of the athletes, McIntosh is training a lot outside right now. Josh Liendo is doing some outdoor swimming. Florida have 2 pools, one indoor, one outdoor, and they tend to split their time a little bit. So yeah, it really just depends on where your hub is. For me, it wasn't really likely I did too much outdoor training.
It seems to me that would be good for your just psychological to get out. Like, I like the fact that they're swapping it up indoors and outdoors, because you know, you get vitamins from the sun. You know, it's just and then you do have the option to train indoors if it's brutal.
Right, and a lot of the staging camps, that was kind of the case, right? We went to most facilities that did have an indoor option. I remember my first World Championships was in Shanghai, China, and we staged in Singapore, and it was this beautiful outdoor facility, but we only had the outdoor facility, and there was a few days where it was just tremendously hot. So we worked a lot with our IST to make sure we had, you know, ice bags there on standby. We were recovering really well, because you can make the most of it, but you don't want to overly dehydrate yourself. Right. You don't want it to really shake up what you're used to.
Skavinsky through 1 kilometer in 11:03. Did that last 50 in 33.9. He is definitely the fastest in this race, and the last 50s prove it.
He still kept his distance from the rest of the field, and talk about a team that's still here. Eastwim, both, I can see about 3 coaches along the sidelines and another 3 athletes in the stands cheering him on. So it really is a sport that, although individual in nature, the team element makes all the difference. And some of my favorite meets, honestly, were the age group, like team champs, where you would go and it was points scored based on timing and placing as a team, and that was the stuff that really made a difference for me and what kind of led me. Because at the end of the day, when you're young, you have to be able to find joy in the sport. It is really hard, you know, once things get challenging, once pressure adds, once expectation is there, it's a lot easier to lose the joy in it. But if you're young, it has to be centered in fun. It has to be centered in getting to do it with the people that you want to surround yourself by. My very best friends, and I think I mentioned yesterday, but the people that stood beside me at my wedding last week were all swimmers, and they all helped shape me into the person I am today because they challenged me in the pool, and that's how we bonded at a young age.
Maybe not everybody knows that you literally got married 2 days before the start of this meet.
About 36 hours. This is the best honeymoon I've ever heard of. I don't know about you guys, but I
now,
suggest
is there
you all
one
do
coming
it.
up?
We're going to go after Paris. So I mentioned that my husband will be joining me in Paris. I'll be there for work. And so after the Paris Games, I'll take a little bit of time between the Olympics and the Paralympics. I'm working from Toronto for the Paralympics, so I'm going to make the most of being over in Europe, and he's going to try to share some of that Olympic magic with me.
Well, people have often said to me that putting up with all of my shenanigans over the years in terms of travels, my wife is a saint, but I think your husband's a saint too.
He is, and he showed up here. I had a bit of a challenging day. Day one, I think I was overtired. I fell on the stairs of my Airbnb, and I was just shaken up a little, and he showed up and surprised me at night. I said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "Well, I promised you 48 hours ago that I would always show up for you." So shout out to Chad, already the best husband, and he's only been a husband for a week.
Wow. That is just awesome. The next touch here, it'll be 1,250 meters for Nicholas Skavinsky. Nice last lap there by Alexandru Del Veliccio. He did that last one in 34.
Final push, though. It's not even a final push yet, but Skavinsky is still continuing to drop the paces here. And talk about bringing your legs in the mix. You can see he's been kicking consistently off every single wall. His coaches there on the side are encouraging him along. He's swimming his own race here, but it is important that you don't kind of let that lose you. In a sense, you can really just lose sight of if you are pushing your own pace. If you relax a little too much, you're not maybe pushing the pace of what you could potentially get to. So you can see now he's got everyone in the white shirts, each swimmer's lined up along the side of the pool, and then the coach is there in the navy, and you'll see when he takes a breath, oh, he's only breathing the other side, so they're not really jumping up and down, but keep an eye on that next 50, they might be doing so.
He's showing them the hand. He's like, I'm not looking at you.
I don't want to look at you.
I can only handle you for one 50-meter segment at a time. And then I need to rest up and concentrate on my stroke.
And again, you might see when they flip, there's a counter at every wall in the far distance, so those are really counting down the laps. They start at 30 laps, so the first wall will be 29, and they work their way down, and that's there as a reference point. Most athletes are in a good understanding of where they're at. This is a long race, though. I said the other day that when I did this event yards, it was 66 laps, so I did need the counter reminding me where I was at, because 66 was way too many for me to keep an eye on. This bell, though, is the indicator that there's only 2 to go, the final 100 meters in this men's 1500.
To that last 50 and 34 low, here he comes for this last piece of this morning session, aside from the swim off that we have coming up. Skavinsky, and then Veliccio and Camerer. Everybody aiming to be better today than they were yesterday and last week and last month. And if it's not a personal best, maybe it's a season best.
Well, that's what it's all about, Rob, just coming in and racing and trying your best. And all we can expect as athletes is to be a little bit better than we were before. And we have to sometimes take away that element of comparison to the rest of the athletes and just focus on what you can do yourself and what you're able to control.
Well, his seed time, Nicholas Skavinsky, was 16:41. I think he's going to better that. He is 16:39.33. And now finishing his is Alexandru Velicchio.
Talk about an extra kick coming home. Look at eye on lane number 6. Alex Kamrari right now. 27 flat on the last 50. Is that a mistake or is that accurate?
Holy cow.
If I'm his coach, we got to have a few words about that one.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, in one sense, he emptied the tank for sure.
Yep. Yeah, 27 flat. The others were 31 and 32. I thought those were okay.
And the heat before, no, the lap before, he was at 33. So, okay, we are gearing up for our swim off here. We'll have to patiently wait for it to appear on our screen. We appreciate your patience, as it's one thing that we're finding out in the moment that you are, your athletes are competing.
So as we understand it, Amy Tian and Ella Howe will be swimming off for the 50 free alternate spot for the B final.
You can see it looks like Amy Pan in lane 4, and Ella Howe will have lane number 5. Those two athletes are set at the far side of the pool for the 50 free. Splash and dash, blink and you'll miss it.
By the way, the top 2 times earlier this morning were Taylor Ruck and Penny Alexiak, who will put themselves in the middle of the pool. And Summer McIntosh, by the way, and Mary Sophie Harvey are in the middle. Mary Sophie will have 4 and McIntosh 5 for the women's 200 IM. But here we go with the swim off for the 50 free. And we're underway. Amy Pan in 4, stays under longer. Ella Howe.
And again, when it's a 50 freestyle separating you by 0.01 of a second, we can expect this race to be close, and right now it sure is.
It is very close. Amy Tian has a slight edge, and she is going to take it in 26:23.
Really solid swim there. Separates herself by about 0.4 of a second. So she'll be the first alternate tonight in the B final. But it is the last night of a session, so it's not uncommon to see a scratch or two. Some athletes, if they're not in a qualification spot, they choose to head out a little early. Maybe they have a bus trip or a flight to catch. So we'll keep an eye on that for sure. Amy Pan winning our swim off this morning.
Brittany, thank you so much for carrying me this morning, especially with the fact that I wasn't quite as ready as I thought I was when the day began, and just for your friendship and for your leadership in helping me commentate swimming. It's been a blast, and to our entire crew and to Swimming Canada, you're going to keep working all day. I'm going to be on an airplane to Brazil.
Well, yeah, safe travels to you, and again, it was such a pleasure. We appreciate your work throughout the week, and one of my favorite calls was that 400 IM world record, so kudos to you. I'll be on the deck for the pre-show around 5 on YouTube, and then I'm also going to be running around the mixed zone. Tonight we announced the final roster on the Olympic and Paralympic side, and I know a lot of alumni are going to be in the building to celebrate that moment, so you might catch me in a few hats tonight this evening to celebrate that, but looking forward to it. And again, we have a privilege of getting to do this job, and it is a privilege to continue to watch the next generation of athletes strive to new heights.
5 o'clock tonight, Brittany will be on with Devin on YouTube. You don't want to miss that. 5:45, it will be Byron McDonald and Jason Pratt on air to carry you, and look forward to having everyone along to watch. And on behalf of Brittany McLean and our entire team, my name is Rob Snook, and thanks for watching, and keep on swimming. We'll see you next time from the 2024 Bell Swimming Olympic and Paralympic Trials in Toronto.
Natation Canada tient à remercier ses partenaires. Swimming Canada would like to thank our partners. Comité olympique canadien, Canadian Olympic Committee, Comité paralympique canadien, Canadian Paralympic Committee, le gouvernement du Québec, the Government of Quebec. Mieux pour tous et toutes les façons dont Bell redonne aux communautés et au sport à travers le Canada. Bell for better and all the ways it gives back to communities and sports across Canada. Mirtha Pools, toujours au cœur des sports aquatiques de haute performance. Murtha Pools, always at the heart of high-performance aquatic sports. La Société de sauvetage du Canada, votre partenaire de confiance en éducation aquatique et en prévention de la noyade. Life Saving Society Canada, your trusted partner in aquatic education and drowning prevention.
I have a disability, but I'm not fragile. My first big hit was a rush. It made me feel alive in a way only sports can. Because of partners like Val, I get to feel it on the world stage. And now I get to share that feeling with the next generation.
Program has ended.